Hey guys, welcome to the Evil Geniuses Bleed Blue podcast. This is going to be a special episode. Again, Counter-Strike special, just like last episode. Mostly because, well, there's a lot of EG news that has happened over the past week, which they love to do right after the podcast gets posted. It has nothing to do with the podcast in general. It just happens to be that way where all the news ends up getting posted on like Mondays and Tuesdays and whatnot. And then on top of that, CS2 came out, and so kind of wanted to do a special just for Counter Strike. I know the League of Legends team literally just finished their they just finished their lower bracket quarterfinal, best of five against CLG, and they won, which was good. They won 3-0. It was nice. But I don't really want to. I'll get into that a little bit, probably next week if I even touch on it that much next week, because honestly they should have beat them anyway. Um, but uh, yeah, so I know there's League of Legends news. I'm just kind of pushing it to the side because the CS2 news is pretty freaking massive, and there's been a lot of EG CS:GO news and updates, and even games that have been played for some teams, one team. And so, figured it'd be best to do a special for the CS:GO side of it for this week. And we have Current again. He's back.
What's
We
up?
we finally managed to get both of us
I
on a
know.
podcast again.
About
So,
time.
how you been?
I've been good, man, dude. I've been building this damn PC for the past 2 weeks, and I'm about to move apartments to the other side of town in like a week. So it's life's been kind of crazy, and then fucking CS2 drops, a bunch of EG news happens, and so it's a whole lot going on. But I'm glad that I was able to get on this one.
Fuck yeah. All right. Well, I guess without further ado, we can start with the CS2 news, which I don't know about you. Okay, I was thinking in my head, I was like, I mean, I knew it was happening when Richard made the report because I trust him, and I figured the second he reported on it that it was legit as fuck. Now, what I wasn't sure of was like he had said the target date was March, worst case scenario April 1st, but like it's Valve and they could change their mind at any moment, so I wasn't really sure. But it ended up happening. I was like it was like March, I don't know, 19th or 20th when I was thinking in my head like, man, there's not too many days left in March. Like I don't know if this is going to get done. And sure enough, middle of the week, out of nowhere seemingly, they posted that it's happening, that it's real, that what people have been waiting for. I mean, I literally since I've been playing the game since 2015, I remember people talking about and raving about Source 2 since 2015. Like
Yeah,
this has been rumored for ages. Um, and it's always amounted to nothing. Again, the only time I really believed it was, I mean, maybe back in 2015 when I was a new player and didn't know anything. But now the only time I really believed it was when Richard reported on it because I was like, okay, it's Richard Lewis, like he's probably
yeah,
legit with
yeah.
that.
He's a legit source.
Yeah. Um, but it's been crazy. The beta started, and a lot of people have a lot of different opinions on what the game looks like and the changes that have been made. And so I figured we could talk about those. Um, and while I don't 100% agree with everything Hooksy has said in his twit longer, I felt like the way he formatted it was very the categories he created were quite nice. And so, while prefacing this with the fact that Current and I haven't played CS2 yet, we don't have the beta versions. It's like something
Uh,
ridiculous. A very, very low percentage of players have it, um, incredibly low. So we don't have personal experience playing CS2, but we can just give, based off of what we've seen, based off of how multiple different pros and figures in the scene have talked about it, um, and just some of the theoretical changes that have happened. We can theorize like, what are our thoughts on the introduction of a lot of the different things regarding CS2. Um, so I guess initial thoughts on I guess the announcement. I mean, I thought it was insane.
it was
I
crazy, dude.
loved the marketing for it, and I thought that I thought people were getting a little bit out of hand in terms of the amount of attention that it was getting in terms of just any time anything got changed, everyone was losing their absolute minds over it. But even though it annoyed me to some degree, at the same time I completely understood that it was definitely making headlines, and that just even the amount of noise it was getting was just ultimately going to be good for the game. So
Right.
even if I didn't like the fact that it was like, oh my god, they changed their profile picture from three fucking logos or whatever to like four,
Yeah.
like dudes holding a weapon or whatever, like I was like, dude, like at least it's getting attention and potentially, it could bring in a lot more new players and people who maybe who like here's one thing people don't consider is like players who got introduced to first person shooters because of Valorant, who had heard about Counter Strike, but just always saw it as like a whatever, like, old fashioned kind of
Old
game, right?
fashioned
Um,
hardcore. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like they just weren't too experienced with it. Maybe this is a nice way to introduce them to Counter Strike,
Mhm.
and potentially, get even more of a fan base, which has already been growing and hasn't really been honestly faltered too much by Valorant at all. But it's just a nice way to get things moving forward. But the announcement caught me off guard completely. I was at work. I was losing my mind. I was like about 10 to 15 minutes away from my lunch break, and all I wanted to do was back to my apartment and see if I had the beta. And watch all the videos because I was watching them through my phone in my car on the way back to
Oh yeah.
my
Same.
apartment. So I had
I was
no
watching Suya
clue.
for the like my 20-minute drive. Yeah.
Yeah, I had no clue what the hell was going on. I was like, I could hear like what they were saying in the videos, but I couldn't really see it. So I was losing my mind a little bit over it. But yeah, what was your initial
Yeah.
reaction to the whole thing?
So dude, I'm just yeah, like I was pretty much same as you. I think we conversed on Twitter, right? Like we're just at work and uh someone had mentioned like, oh, maybe put on Valve's like CS as noties, right? So I did that like a while ago. Then for a while there, they were just kind of like memeing and like replying to like Flom and like other people
Yeah,
like that. And I was like, okay, this is kind of stupid. And then I just saw one that dropped is that's first smokes video, and I was like, oh, oh, this is like a real thing. And then another one dropped like a minute after that. And then the third one dropped. And then the fourth. And I was like, holy shit, this is like a real thing. I did not get like anything else done the rest of the day at work.
yeah, me
Like,
neither.
because I'm sitting here like watching the videos, texting my buds, like, holy shit, it's happening. Like this is real. This is a real fucking thing. And just watching everybody like react on Twitter and everyone like actually freaking out that it was like actually happening. And then I even made that tweet. I was like, "Yeah, I'm about to tell my boss I might be out the rest of the week because I just wanted to get home, see if I got the limited beta. Obviously, I didn't, which sucks. But again, like it's just really cool to actually see this happen. Even though I've only played since like 2018, I think it's really cool to see them actually do it, right? Because
Right.
and I get from their perspective that this game has not really, like you said, faltered in the eyes of like Valorant coming in. And I mean, what we've broken our peak like in the past 2 weeks, like twice or
Yeah.
something like that, crazy. And then to kind of just take that leap of yeah, we're gonna change a lot of shit and just see if it works.
Yeah.
Like that's a big risk to take. I mean, when you hit 1.6 million concurrent players, and you're like, okay, well, let's see if this helps, and then basically change the whole fucking game almost, and some people's eyes, right? Like that's a
Yeah.
big leap, but I'm glad it's happening because it just looks better. The sounds, I think we're just gonna have to get used to. I do like the sounds. It's just gonna be different. The smokes also are just different, but I think after you just play it for a while, it's gonna be really fun. I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, it's just the beta, so a lot of things can still change from between now and summer. But no, dude, I was just at work and I was freaking out. Like I went outside, I called my buddy, and I was like, "Oh, dude, like, are you awake? Like this shit's happening." He's like, "Dude, I'm awake too." Like it was pretty fucking awesome. So, but yeah,
Yeah, so while we're let's get into some of the things that have changed. So okay, following Hooksy's format, I guess. Um, First thing he talks about is the gun behavior and general feeling of playing. Now, obviously, haven't freaking played it, so have no general feeling of what the game,
couldn't
uh,
really tell you.
feels like, quote unquote. Um, I will say maybe what we can put instead of this is potentially the movement because I'm noticing
Mhm.
that he doesn't mention that in here.
He's not a
So
movement guy,
I'm
so I don't think
assuming,
he's
well,
worried.
yeah, and I assume he kind of means that when it comes to gun behavior and general feeling of playing. That kind of sounds to me like how the gun's recoil works and whatnot, and how the movement is. So I would say, look, from what I've seen, I think it's incredible that they've actually kind of mimicked CS:GO uh, to the level they have. Um, I saw some people, it was like Gabe Follower, I don't know, one of those
Right.
Twitter accounts that have a YouTube channel or Val Follower or something like that. They created like a CS, a Source 2 version of
Oh yeah,
Counter-Strike
yeah, yeah.
um, that they actually, I think, got forced to take down.
They
Um,
did, yeah.
but it was like I was watching it and I was just like the movement just looks so bad. And I understood that that was just like what some random, people had made, but I knew, look, it's a completely different engine, so the movement could be entirely different. And so I was pretty anxious to see how the movement was gonna look and how the guns were gonna work. But I mean, in terms of the movement, I think they've done a good job, but I think there's still a lot of improvement in terms of like nobody has been able to bunny hop. Bunny hopping
No.
has been fucking basically removed. It's sometimes you'll see somebody hit a hop, but it's not
Yeah.
consistent at all. It's practically negligible. It basically doesn't exist anymore, which makes me question if surfing is even going to be a thing anymore.
Mm.
Which look, I know those are bee hopping is more used in games than surfing is, but these are very large communities within Counter Strike. To me, it was always a strength of Counter Strike because it was, oh, you may not like playing Counter Strike, but dude, you could fall in love with surfing and you could just play surf for
Yeah,
like
like
that could be what you do to play Counter Strike. It's basically an entirely new game. Same thing with bunny hopping and KZ and all that shit. So to me, those are important things that Counter Strike needs to keep. And so I hope, and I think they will be able to fix this. Hopefully, I mean, there's no way to guarantee it, right? With it being a completely new engine, but I'm hoping that because they've done such a good job replicating what they have already. And the fact that Flom had said the movement was felt better in this beta test than it did when he tested it back in January. So
that
that
shows
already,
improvement.
yeah, that's already a great sign. So like in my mind, I feel like they hopefully will be able to figure those things out. Um, but that's the only knock that I have on the movement is just
Mm.
there's no bunny hopping, which makes me think surfing's probably not going to be a thing. Um, and yeah, so that's something that I want to be available. Not to mention in terms of the gunplay, um, one thing that was interesting was a lot of players were saying that the recoil patterns were different, but then people came out with a video showing the recoil patterns, and they're seemingly the same, if not very,
Yeah.
very similar.
Yeah, I think
So
I think it I think the differences are pretty slim,
yeah,
pretty negligible. I guess when you're in that top 1%, right, where
you can feel the
you can
differences.
feel
Yeah,
the very little differences. But I would say to the like 90% of typical like you and I, right? Like
right.
where we're only really hitting maybe the like first 7 to 10 shots at best. Like we're probably not going to notice
A
too much
casual's not going to
difference.
notice as well. But I do think it's I was very impressed when I saw the video of the two spray patterns because
Mhm.
like for those who aren't thinking of this, like guys, it's like I said, it's a completely new engine. So you could have had a spray pattern that's like completely different than what the current spray pattern is. Like it could have been entirely different. Like you can tell that the devs were very intent on keeping a lot of the mechanics or basically all the mechanics the same. They want the mechanics to be the same as Global Offensive. They're changing other things. They're changing some of the stuff with utility and how the maps look and the feel of the game in terms of just like the environment you're in. But they clearly want to keep the mechanics of the game the same, and I like that. And I think that's actually a great way to to further ensure that players who are really really good right now will remain really really good. Because I understand that yes, it is a completely different game in terms of, and we'll get to it, how the utility works. But I think the main thing that hinders whether or not a player is going to be successful in the future, a huge factor is just understanding the flow of the mechanics in the game, which I think is a big reason why a lot of players didn't make it when they transitioned to global offensive was just because the mechanics were different. Um, so we'll see how that goes. But I thought honestly, again, like yeah, there's some tweaks that they clearly need to make. Some people still think the movement is a little bit clunky, but I think overall, from what I've heard, it looks and from what I've seen, it looks pretty damn good. And I'm actually really pleased with how everything looks in terms of a movement and gunplay standpoint.
Mhm. Yeah, I think again we haven't played it, so
Right.
we can't really give our personal 2 cents on it. Based on who I've watched, yeah, the movement is a little bit goofy, but like you said, bringing up Flom saying that it's already better, and since he play tested it in what January or whenever it
Yeah.
was, right? I mean that shows that they're trying to improve it a lot. Um, yeah, I think gunplay wise, it looks good. Um, I've seen a couple people maybe miss shots that they probably shouldn't, but again, if we're talking about those guys that are in the top 1% that are like chain spraying, getting kills like beads, like they're gonna notice those little things, whereas the casual player that's just transferring over probably.
Yeah. Oh, and real
I
quick,
yeah,
that nothing spray down that he had, like
that was
when
sick.
on the first day, like I'm
That was
sorry, but
sick.
yeah, the spray pattern might be different, very, very slightly. But if nothing is able to do that, I think people are gonna figure it out
I
pretty
think people are
quick.
gonna be
The
perfectly fine.
changes are
Yeah,
so minimal, like because
yeah.
that spray was ridiculous. Like that was
That
a
spray was
very
dumb.
difficult spray to pull off.
I
So
will
it
say
can't be that
that
different.
yeah, I will say that I kind of like that they found that recoil command where the crosshair follows.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think that it like I don't think that people will end up using it a whole lot.
No,
I
no,
think
no,
that
no.
it might be one of those things where it's like a select few people use it, or maybe even you introduce it to a player that's new, right? That
Sure.
doesn't understand the concept of a spray pattern and that the bullets aren't actually going where your crosshair is. Well, now the crosshair can actually follow your bullets. So for new players, I think that is a cool little command that they added in. I don't think I'd really see myself using it. Maybe it'd be a good practice to get your muscle memory down for that said spray pattern, but overall, I think it looks good. I think the gunplay itself looks good. I agree that I'm glad that they're not changing what they had right.
Hmm.
You know, they know that the gunplay and Go is good. That's why it's so popular. That's why the pros excel at it. So I think they did a great job in saying, you know what, we have this piece right. We don't need to change it. We just simply need to transfer it over into the new engine. We don't have to introduce really anything new when it comes to the gunplay, how they shoot, and how they react to stuff. So I think that was a really good. I think that's really really good of them.
Yeah, and just to quickly touch on the point you had on the follow recoil crosshair, because I saw a lot of people were honestly a lot of people are just giving it shit because
Yeah,
it does seem like a meme addition to the
it
game. Like,
does.
okay, why the fuck did they add this? But I will say, while I don't again I don't think people are gonna use this in game. I mean, I think it's funny if you're gonna do one of those like those
Challenge videos or
yeah, I used
something
to
like
do them with
that.
my
Yeah,
friends all the time. You
spin the
play like
wheel.
CS:GO
Yeah,
roulette and it's got those weird
strat
strats and everything.
roulette.
Yeah, strat
Yeah,
roulette, and you just that could be a strat roulette one. But I think the best purpose of it and why I actually really like that it's even in the game is because I think it's actually a great way for you to get into a server, a practice server, and just see
the spray
the
pattern. Yeah,
spray pattern. And not only to see the spray pattern, you can attempt to
practice
control
it.
the spray pattern and you'll start to get the feel for it. And you want to keep that crosshair as close as tight as you possibly can. Obviously, it's never going to be a line, but as tight as you possibly can. I think that's a really cool practice tool. It reminds me of
It is.
those maps where you literally you press the button, you stand in one place and you literally just follow the dot and you just practice your spray over and over and over again. It reminds me of something like that, and now you can do that on your own. And so I think it's a
Mhm.
really cool practice tool. Obviously, a lot of people are just joking around saying, get rid of it. It's stupid. It's worthless. Why is it even in the game? But I actually do think it's like a unique practice
Yeah.
tool that people can use. I don't think pros are going to use it. I don't think it's for that purpose, but I think it's a great tool for casuals to just,
Mhm.
hey, you want to practice your spray control?
Yeah.
Just here you go. Like you can just use this
Yeah.
and practice your
You,
spray
you can
control.
use this command. I think if they wanted it to be like a proper thing, they would have added it into like settings, into actual
Right.
like settings page. The fact that it's command and kind of like a hidden
Yeah.
gem type of
Yeah, it
thing,
is. Yeah.
like just you already know that was kind of something for people to find.
Hmm.
And again, I don't see the pros doing it. Maybe Fasher wants to add something to the laundry list of weird binds and things that he uses, but
Yeah.
I don't think I think it's almost too distracting to the point of people that are
Definitely. Yeah.
used to the game and used to the muscle memory they already have. Yeah, I think it'll be too distracting and not that beneficial. I think it's one of those kind of novelty things, like you said. But again, I want to reiterate that for new players that don't understand spray patterns, it's going to help out like a lot.
definitely.
Like if I would have had that when I uh first started playing, I feel like that would have been extremely beneficial because as a new player to CS or any FPS like this, it's like all my friends just said, "Oh, just use the op, like just op.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just
just
have to
Op or
zoom and
P90
click,
or
just
something.
zoom and
Yeah, the
click,
AUG,
or,
all
or
all the nuke
SMG,
guns.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, just do that." But now that there's this, right, you can like you said, hop in a offline server, put in this fucking command, and just like learn the spray yourself.
yep,
And it's so discouraging, I think, in Go to try to do that because then you have to like it seems like extra work has to be done in order for you to learn your spray and
yeah,
Go in comparison to what it will look like if you have this.
yeah. So moving on, let's see. The next, we're saving the juicy bits for the end.
Of
We've
course,
got we've got map design and general look of the game. Um,
I think it looks great.
I think it looks fantastic. I have literally zero complaints with what the game looks like now. And the thing that I have heard the most consistent criticism I have heard of this is that they took inspiration from Valorant and
Valorant,
it looks like
yeah,
Valorant and Fortnite. And I'm just like, I just don't get it because last time I checked, Fortnite and Valorant didn't invent having a colorful palette of background colors so that you can see
or
what the
nice
fuck is in front
shaders
of
and
you.
good lighting and
Yeah,
like
like
all that. Yeah,
last time I checked, they didn't invent that. Like, I don't care if some dev came over from Valorant and like worked on CS and fucking added that in there. I don't care. It's not
no,
in like to me, even if it's
it looks
inspired by
good.
it, it doesn't matter. Like it's just a good
It
part of
looks
Valorant and
fucking
Fortnite
good.
that should be added to Counter-Strike. Like as far as I'm concerned, if it helps the visibility of the game, which is by far and away one of the biggest problems in Counter-Strike Global Offensive, I cannot tell you because of, and we'll get to the smokes a little bit later, but it falls in line with that
It,
where visibility was really difficult even just on Counter-Strike Global Offensive
It
maps
it
by
looks so much
itself.
better watching people like the streams. It looks so much better and a lot
Yes,
cleaner. I will say when it first released, I think Nuke was the first one I saw. I was like, yeah, that does look a little bit like Valorant. But then you see the other maps and you kind of just realize that you can complain that it looks like Valorant, but it looks good at the end of the day. So does it really fucking matter, right? Like it looks fucking clean. The lighting looks great. I think my only thing with it would be maybe Nuke might be a little bit weird. I'm curious on how Nuke's gonna work out since they have so much of that glass and like reflective like
I do
material
worry about the
in that map.
sunlight that goes through the
Right.
windows. I want to know
So
what
I'm
that
so
looks
I'm
like.
curious on how that's gonna work, but in terms of all like dude, connector and like overpass, like you can
It's
actually fucking
insane.
like see in there now.
Yes.
It looks so much better than what
Yeah.
it was.
And that's what I'm talking about when it's like, guys, visibility is the one of the biggest. I can't tell you how many new like because a lot of my friends, again, they play Valorant. I introduced them to Counter Strike, and they play the game and they just die to things that make no sense to them. Like
Or they
they
can't, or they're
can't
like, where the
see it.
fuck were they?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
they
have
can't
no
see it.
idea where they're dying from because you guys gotta understand, Valorant is very much like it's so easy and intuitive to pick up. It's so like streamlined. Like, hey, this is where you need to be in this situation. Like it's very
Hell, in
much one
Valorant, the guys are
dimensional.
highlighted, so
Yeah,
like
and it's like in Counter Strike, man, it's like a sandbox. Like you're just in the server. You got to go buy your own crap and go
yeah,
wherever the
good
hell you
luck.
want and use whatever grenades you want. Because guess what? There's no agent. There's no like, hey, I play this agent, so this is the kind of things that I need to be doing. No, you're just like everybody else. You can do whatever you want. It's basically a sandbox in that regard compared to Valorant. And so a lot of new players get introduced to Counter Strike and they just don't know what the hell they're dying to. They can't see the guy who shoots them. They're getting shot by some dude who's looking at the edge of a smoke. They're getting killed because they were at the wrong place at the wrong time and they can't understand why, but they can't even see the guy, so they don't even know what they did
Yeah,
wrong. Like
yeah, and that makes it
visibility,
so much frustrating for
yeah.
like a new player, right? Like that's one of the yeah, it is legitimately a big thing for new players, and this goes back to the gunplay, right? With that like recoil, like crosshair, right? Like it seems like they're introducing a lot of stuff that will help bring a new player base to the game because again, like I just want to piggyback basically like, yeah, you can't see half the time when you're dying unless it's a straight up gunfight. Like sometimes you don't even know. And to a new player, if you just die over and over and over again, and it's like, well, I'm 0 and 5. I didn't even see I feel like I didn't see anybody.
Yep.
Like, that's just gonna be so discouraging. You're gonna be like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna go play Valorant where it's super colorful, like, people are highlighted, I understand exactly what I'm supposed to do." Like, yeah, so I
Yeah,
I think it looks
I'll
dumb.
even say like I'll even cater it to where this is a change that actually people who are in the competitive scene should be happy that this is a thing. And as from an esports standpoint, we should be happy this is a thing. Because for as much hate as it's getting, and for as much as it's like, oh well, it's helping new players, and it is helping new players a lot. It helps new players the most out of anybody with these changes. I mean, honestly, the game just looks better. Not to mention, I mean, it just does look
Mhm.
better. But here's why it's important from a competitive standpoint. Because people who have never seen Counter Strike before, people who are watching Counter Strike for the first time, it's just one more thing you can give to Counter Strike for why it's one of the best, if not the, I would argue it's the best
The
competitive
best.
game
Yeah.
you can watch as an esport. Every other fucking game is confusing as fuck, except for Rocket League. But Rocket League doesn't have nearly the amount of depth that Counter
Rocket League's
Strike
just
does.
fucking soccer, you know,
It's
so
not as
yeah,
hard to understand. It's fucking rocket cars that can play soccer in a dome. Like
yeah,
that's all it is. Counter Strike has a noob could watch Counter Strike and know what the fuck is going on, and a professional fucking player could watch Counter Strike
mhm,
and knows all the intricate details on what's going on. And to both people, it's super interesting, and that's something that no other game has. And so why I mention this is important when it comes to visibility is because there's going to be new people who watch the game and they're just going to be like, dude, this game looks so dull, it looks so boring, it looks so black, and
well, that's
all
what I wanna
everything is a
play it,
black
yeah,
and gray and just bland and
dark,
brown. And it's
yeah,
just like now you get these vibrant colors, so not only does it just look more appealing, but on top of that they'll be able to see what the, because look, they got highlighted outlines and all that, but it can still be difficult to tell what the hell's going on at times when there's smokes everywhere and whatnot. So like I think this is just going to help overall. It helps the viewers, new viewers. It helps the players who are playing. I mean, even professional players get caught off by just not being able to see a player that they realistically should be able to see.
yeah,
But because the map is really dark, or we'll get to smokes in a second. But the way smokes work in the game, like you just
mhm,
don't see where you die from. So I think this is actually a super, super, super good change, and I don't understand the criticism for it. I don't think they're stealing it. Even if I accept the fact that they are taking something from Valorant, guys, they took something that's good about Valorant and Fortnite.
yeah,
It's not
who
like they
fucking
took something
cares?
bad about it. So like,
Yeah,
why are you
it's not
complaining?
like we gave, like, designated roles that you have to fucking choose at
Yeah,
the beginning of a map. Like, they took a really good thing from Valorant, which is just gonna help overall immensely.
yeah,
Like, in a game where you get so much information from not even seeing people, right? So, like, you get info from sound, from what your teammates hear, from where utilities thrown from. And then once you finally get in that fucking gunfight to kill somebody, if you can't fucking see them, that is so bad.
yeah.
Like you do all the things right, but as soon as they're sitting in a dark fucking corner and connector that you can't see and they just like one tap you, you're like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? Visibility is so huge in a game like this. It's obviously it's huge in any game, right? But in a game where Go was so dark and there's almost the term of playing like a fucking rat comes from because you just play these goofy little positions where visibility's low. There's always been issues with those agent skins on some maps,
I
right?
was actually
And
going to
where
talk
they
about that.
blend
Yeah,
in. Like, and now it looks like, you can clearly see each and every one of them regardless of where they're sitting. Like that is so huge. Now agent skins, they probably won't still come into pro play, right? They'll probably just keep
no.
them all the same. But like,
But
I'm
hopefully,
never
even if they're
gonna,
introduced to casual play, hopefully it doesn't. You'll be able to tell
yeah,
that's a
you'll be
fucking
able to
human
tell.
being on the other side of the. You know what I mean? On the other side of the
Right.
gunfight, instead of just like I can't even see them because they blend into the brown wall because of their brown, their dark,
Yeah.
black and brown
Exactly,
skin.
or half the time when, like, someone
Yeah,
crosses doors on Dust 2 and Go, I'm like, I'll shoot at the doors. I don't see the outline of the actual, like, character model. I just see, like, a blob moved
yeah,
across
or
the
like some
screen,
gray blob, or like
but now
oh
it's looking like, "Oh, I can definely see each part of that, like, character model as it crosses Dust 2 doors,"
yeah,
right?
you got green vines in the background, and there's some dude who wide peaks you wearing a dark green suit, and you're just like, well, I couldn't see him.
Okay.
Like, I literally like,
Yeah.
what am I supposed to do? So yeah, hopefully agent skins, if they're in the game, which I expect they will be they're obviously going to be in the base game. I don't think they're going to be in pro play, but hopefully even in the base game. So for every 99% of the player base, hopefully for all of us, if they're introduced to the game, which they will be whenever they are, it won't actually affect, hey, I can't see that person, and you won't be
Right.
like picking agent skins based on what you can and can't see, because
Yeah.
that's ridiculous. Um, so I guess moving on from that aspect of the game, we can move to who? Let's see here. I kind of want to save. I kind of want to save the utility for the end because I feel like it's going to be the most interesting thing to talk about.
Yeah.
I guess what we can do is look. We can't really talk too much on sounds. I mean, I know they changed the gun sounds. I mean, I think it's good. I don't really. I mean, I don't
I
really
I
care.
I I
Um,
think purely it's just gonna like to keep that section short and sweet. I think it's just gonna come down to getting used to. I mean, with any new game or any little thing that changes, I think it's just gonna take getting used to the new sounds, right? I don't think any of them sound bad. I think
yeah.
maybe the AK sounds a little muted. I do like if this. I think this falls into the sound the footstep area on the mini map, kind of like
Yes.
Valorant also
Yep.
has.
Took that from Valorant too. Yep.
I think that's really cool. Again,
Good
especially for
change.
new players and even some players, right, like you and I that have experience, will now be able to actually see, be like, oh, I didn't know they could actually hear me from here.
Yep.
I thought I was in the clear here, right? But again, and people, I think some people are being like, oh, it's too goofy. Well, if you've been playing it long enough, you should already know where you're able to be heard from, what kind of sounds are being made. So you're probably not even looking at the mini map to be like, oh, am I being heard right now? If you've played the game for more than 300, 400 hours, you probably already know it. You're not even looking to be like, oh, am I being heard? You just know, like mentally, right? So as far as sounds for like guns and movement and stuff like that, I think it's just going to purely just take getting used to hearing the new sounds, getting that in your head that that's what it sounds like. I don't think it's gonna be like anything horrible, good. I'm very just neutral on the topic.
Yeah, I think a big thing when I hear people complain about the sounds or the guns or anything, to me, I'm just like, guys, we all thought the new sounds were dog shit like a couple years ago when they changed. And now,
Yeah,
honestly, I couldn't tell you the difference. Like,
I could
I
tell
mean,
you.
I could tell you the difference obviously if I heard the old sounds, but like my point is like at this point that new AK sound is just the only thing I think of now when I hear the AK. Like I just
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
or that
eventually
A1S
give
sound,
this
right? Yeah,
yeah, like give this like literally a couple months, maybe a year, and
and no one's gonna even
you won't
think this
even
is a top
remember.
thing.
No, you won't even remember it. You won't even be like, that sounds really weird. No, you won't. That'll just be like default in your brain. You won't care anymore.
At most people might be like, oh, I kind of like the old AK sound better, but that's like it. Like the fuck
Yeah.
are they gonna do about it, right? Like
No.
you can't do anything about it, so you might as well
Right.
just listen to it and get used to it. Like there's
Yeah.
no point in complaining about gun sound because it it at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. As long as they don't sound the same as other weapons,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter at the end of the day. As long as from a distance you can distinctively know what weapon that enemy has in their hand for information wise, it doesn't play into that's literally just a subjective thing of, oh, I like the old one better. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Like get fucked. Like what, you can't do anything about it. So like, get used to it. Sorry. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
so
Exactly. Um, and I guess the other really brief topic that we can very quickly touch on is uh, tick rate. Um, I okay.
I don't know,
They're
dude.
doing the sub tick thing. I didn't really know what sub tick was. I kind of had to look that up. Um,
Yeah.
look, I mean, it looks like it's better than 64 tick,
But it doesn't
but
look like it's as good as 120.
yeah, I'm just not 100% sold, honestly. Um, I'm not sure. I know the net graph is now, isn't net graph now a thing? What has it showed tick rates when people have been
No, I
using
think
it? I don't know if I haven't seen anyone use net graph, so I don't know what it look. I don't know what it
I
says.
think Smooya tried it, but I don't think it showed tick rate. It just showed
Of course, it
FPS
doesn't.
and some other
Because,
like
well, I'd imagine
VARs.
their logic is, well, that we don't need to put a tick rate there because it doesn't exist
Yeah,
anymore.
it doesn't exist.
But
I think for you,
yeah,
I think mainly it's going to be one of those. I think it's one of those things where we haven't played it, so we won't really be able
yeah,
to
we have no
forge a
idea.
feeling opinion on it
Yeah,
based on the pro. Like when it's something like that where it's the little nuances, I can't. I don't always try to listen to the pros because I'm not a pro, so I'm not constantly playing on 128.
right. Yeah,
Even when I play like league, like ESEA league on 128 and face it on 128, I don't really feel a huge difference myself.
the main difference I
Maybe
feel is usually
maybe I
movement.
die faster or movement's a little bit smoother, right? But I'm not a movement god and I'm an opper, so I just point and click anyways, right? So to me, it doesn't matter. I know the pros are probably gonna they have a big opinion on it. They think it feels like 64, right? But I'm sure if it can be adjusted, it will, right? It will
Yeah,
get
and I think
adjusted.
a big thing here is maybe it doesn't feel perfect, but I will say it's still really hard to judge what exactly it is when it's beta. Could change, could completely
Shit,
change
dude,
as it moves
Valorant
forward,
is
and
kind of
maybe
rough now
it
compared to
had.
what
I
it
mean,
was
yeah, and like, look, does it have the potential to feel like dog shit? Yeah, it does. But it also has the
easily.
potential to be better, maybe even feel better than 128 tick. Who knows? I'm not saying that it will. I'm just saying that there's a chance.
Fuck
So,
that shit.
like,
Susan said it here. It's gonna be
yeah,
better than 128.
maybe. And I think a big thing too is a lot of people were reacting to it and they weren't taking into account their ping, which obviously plays a role.
Yeah,
So
dude.
look,
Yeah, if you have like if you're a Euro and you're playing on like high ping, right? Like,
yeah,
dude, of course, any game's gonna feel like dog
I
shit on
actually
anything
wonder.
higher than like 90 ping.
Yeah, I actually wonder what the how the players who played it in that 10
Basically,
man
in the yeah
that 10 man
in the land on the
at
land.
the show match
Yeah,
at Pro League. I wonder how they felt playing it at LAN.
I think
I
it'd be
feel like that
interesting
would be
to
a
see if they tweet anything
interesting
later.
thing to, yeah, that'd be an interesting thing to hear. But yeah, anyways, uh, who knows? We'll see. Um, Now the big change, the fucking massive change that has happened, which is the utility. This has been very, very controversial. And it has been the fact that smoke grenades are now, as they've coined it, volumetric. They live and breathe within the world. They interact with other objects. For example, you put a smoke and double doors on Dust 2. It doesn't just stay at the same height, it actually goes up and it expands. And so, actually, a lot of times people would use an op and they'd look over the smoke on CT side of Dust 2. You can't even do that anymore to watch Catwalk because the
It just
smoke
fills it to the
actually
top.
goes up and you can't see. So it interacts with the world. It grows and it elongates and it fills the space that it's in. I think now, if you throw the smoke properly, you only need one smoke to cross
Yep.
long on Dust 2. So that's one change that they did to the smokes. Another change they did to the smokes is that the smokes they look the same no matter who is looking at them. It doesn't look different in any way. There's no, when the smoke fades, it's not that like the person inside the smoke can see people before the people outside of the smoke. So that's another change. They made it to where obviously the big change is that HE grenades can now blow up the smokes temporarily. Um, and then eventually and then in a second or so they reform into a full smoke again. And then and then the last change is that when you shoot bullets into the smoke, it actually creates little holes, very small holes, but little holes inside the smoke. The holes are a little bit bigger if it's on the outer edge of the smoke compared to when they're on
Yeah,
the
it's more
inside of the
clear
smoke.
on the outs, which
Yeah,
is a good.
definitely. And the best way that I heard somebody describe it is it's like they basically, the bullets create cylinders through the smoke. And so
Yeah,
it's
they
not as
tunnel through the
simple.
smoke. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not as simple as saying, hey, some guy can take a Negev, stand over at a 90-degree angle from me or an op and spam a smoke, and then I'm sitting at like, I don't know, a 25-degree fucking
Yeah.
angle from that guy, and I can now see through the hole that he's created. Like, no, in that situation, I wouldn't be able to see anything because he's able to see from his perspective, but I can't see it from my perspective.
Mhm.
So it doesn't work like that. That's not a thing. People were theorizing that could be a thing. Like, hey, you
He
take an
just
op, you
sprayed the
shoot through the
smoke
smoke,
down.
and now
Yeah.
there's a hole in the smoke, and the guy who's standing on the other side of it can now spam the smoke and see, or can see through the smoke. It doesn't work like that. Just for clarification. Yeah, lots of changes to smoke grenades. Um, Damn, I don't even know. I don't even know where to start with this. I think the
I'll
best.
start. I'll start.
Go for it. Go for it.
I
Say
got a
go
big
go on
opinion
your
on this
whole.
shit, right?
Literally, I don't even care if you talk about every single thing you can think of, and then we'll just
So
bounce off each other.
fucking all
Go
right.
for it.
So all right. I think the visuals of the smokes themselves, as they stand right now, are kind of dog shit. I think they could get a little. I don't know. I like the volumetric thing, right? I like the fact that they are actually in the world. They're server side now. They're not client side, where one ways aren't going to be a thing. Um, the whole advantage of sitting in the smoke as it dissipates isn't a thing. I think the look of them, the outsides, kind of just look a little goofy to me, a little bit. I think they could touch them up slightly. Again, it's the beta, so I'm not going to be super critical, but they just don't look very good to me right now. Um, The HE thing. Oh, dude, I'm torn because like part of me kind of likes that they are now affected by other things in the game, and part of me kind of do- doesn't like because I feel like there is going to be that time when a smoke gets naded and I'm staring down like four enemies on the other
Like
side of this
JW
smoke,
was.
like JW was exactly, and I'm just going to be pissed off. But I think it's cool what they're trying to do. They are trying to change stuff, right? Um, I think the looks of like the mollies, the HEs, I think those look really, really good. The flames for the mollies look like actual like flames with like little blue, little purple in there, right? But yeah, the smokes, it's gonna take getting used to because obviously they're gonna want to stick with this whole volumetric thing, which I think is a really cool concept. I'm glad that the bullet holes, right, in the smokes are tougher to see through the more in the middle of the smoke that you shoot and spray through. I was worried that you were gonna like be able to spray through the direct middle of the smoke and just have like a really clean line of sight. But like you touched on, and I'm sure everyone has seen that more towards the outside, it gets more clear and more easier to see. And that again, like you touched on, was if I'm shooting directly at the camera, right? If someone's sitting on the other side at a weird angle, they're not going to have a sight line on me. It'll be like the old smokes and go, right? Where you kind of have to do some internal math of angles and some trigonometry and shit to be able to spray me back down. I think it will really help in like a monster on overpass scenario when you're spraying that monster tunnel and you get tagged. Now you'll be able to be like, oh, it's that fucker right there, and be able to shoot him back, right? So I think it will help in that instance. I think I'm just internally torn on the whole HE blowing up the smoke thing. I because I think someone at the LAN that they played at timed it's close to like it's closer to like 3 seconds before that smoke is like fully back to like a full smoke with no vision. I think that time could maybe be lessened a bit because especially to the pros, right? Like they only need half a second to get a kill down. So let alone blowing up a whole smoke on like a smoke wall outside on nuke, dude. Like if you're crossing four dudes outside nuke and one dude throws an HE and you get 3 seconds of free aim at these guys, that's gonna be crazy. It's gonna completely change how you maneuver around smokes. You're no longer gonna feel safe sitting behind a smoke. Before you could sit behind a smoke and they might be spamming, but you're like, they're just guessing, right? But now you're gonna be worried about an HE coming in and spreading that smoke out, and then you're fucked, right? So that's gonna completely change that. You're going to be holding smokes right now. Like before, you could smoke. Someone might Stewie it, but fuck them. You know, Stewie's coming back. Fuck that guy. That's a different topic. But um, like you're gonna like on dust too long, right? When you smoke long, you're now gonna have to hold that smoke and the anticipation that they might EG it or HE it and blow it up. You're gonna have to be worried that you're gonna get sprayed through and get a sight lined on, basically. It's going to change that entire gameplay, right? Where it's no longer I throw a smoke down, I can now change my angle and change direction of where I want to aim at. You still can, but you now have to think in the back of your head, well, if I hear an HE go off, I'm now being exposed to two angles. I can't hold this as if it's a wall or a new angle. It's just going to change a lot of things that I think primarily the higher level, right? I think you're going to have to be really coordinated in order to pull off a lot of these HE smoke blowups. Hopefully there's going to be a coined term for it soon. Um, I think as a team, you're going to have to. It's going to be tougher to do. You could probably do as a solo play, right? But I don't know. It's going to be interesting. The smokes obviously are the biggest thing. Everything else just kind of got to look update. Like I said, I really like the mollies. I like the new HE explosion. Flashes seem to be exact same. I really like the tinted smokes, so you know which side is a T smoke and which side is a CT smoke. I really like that. That way, you're no longer questioning, okay, is this a lurk smoke that they threw out of B tunnels, or is this my teammate that just threw a shit B tunnel smoke and it just didn't go in the tunnel? And for me, the one ways, I'm kind of sad they're leaving in a way. because I'm that rat on Mirage that throws like the window
The
like
window
one
one?
ways. The
Yeah.
the and I know both of them, so like once I throw the one, I just throw the other, and the other team's like completely pissed. I was playing the other day, and I threw one of the window smokes, and he goes and he typed good luck fucker in CS2. You won't be able to do that. And
That's
I thought
funny.
that was so funny. I've been trying to get them all out of my system, but I think for the overall game, it's good they won't really exist, and everybody sees the same smoke. Uh, if I was pulling a Hooksy, I think I'd still give it like a 7 out of 10. I think he rated it lower than I did, honestly, but
The utility changes he rated a 5.
yeah,
He's not very happy with them.
I think overall it's still positive. I think that's the smoke in itself is just going to completely change how you take map control and how like because now it's almost like no smoke is safe, right? The fact that it can just dissipate with a nade is like huge. I think that will obviously up the usage of bot HE grenades. I think HE is always that like stepchild that like no one ever really buys. Only some people buy because I feel like a lot of people double up on flashes on a full buy instead of buying an HE because HEs are such crapshoots. But now you can just buy an HE and now it's the smoke counter. You just counter it with a HE and now you can the smoke's no longer. I think based on what I've seen, if that refill time of the smoke was a little shorter, I don't think it would be as big of an issue with me. Or maybe when the HE blows up, it look to me it looks really clear, like after the smoke's gone. Maybe if it was still like 25% hazy, or maybe even like 30 to where you can't just clearly see through it. I think that would be a lot better. I think the fact that it just boom and like 2 to 3 seconds of just clear vision is just a lot to be giving, especially high level players that can just snap on a head within an instant. I think that's a lot of time. So that's my little piece on the smoke. I know a lot of it is a controversial thing because I think a lot of people like it and a lot of people don't. I'm torn because I like the change, but at the same time, I don't like how some of the changes are. I think I like the change. This is so fucked, dude. I like the change, but if the changes are tweaked slightly more, I would just absolutely love it. So that's kind of my piece.
Yeah. All right. Here's my smoke rundown. All right. Here's my smoke rundown. So, I think the first thing I'm going to mention, because I talked about this earlier with the visibility, is that I think this solves so many problems that this game has in terms of integrating new players to the game. Things that it's not even like you can figure out these things relatively quickly if you're a new player. These are things that take a lot of time for you to learn. One-way smokes are frankly fucking ridiculous. Like, it is impossible. Like, when you're a new player, it is absurd for you to have to learn that this is a thing. Like,
Yeah,
somebody who's experienced basically has to tell you, or you have to die to it enough times to where you have looked it up and you see that it's a one-way smoke. It is mental to me that this is a thing in a competitive video game like Counter-Strike, because it is so mental how often these get used now. I mean, they get used all the time to get free picks. It's one of the things that I think is so strange about the game, and I'm so glad that it is gone. Yes, there's geometric one ways, right? That's still going to be a thing where, like, technically, if you're on a higher platform than somebody else and there's a smoke, you would be able to see them and they can't see you. Sure, that's a thing. But it's not one ways where it's like, yeah, on their screen, you're on the same fucking level playing field. That guy can't see you, but you can see all of them. Like, that is mental to me. I can't believe that was in Counter Strike for as long as it was, frankly. Um, so that I think is a massively good change. That's one really, really good change, especially for new players, because like I said, there's no way for you to learn that information, especially if you're only playing matchmaking and you don't love the game enough to where you're looking up on Reddit to figure out what one-way smokes are and all this other bullshit. You basically just have to learn that from playing the game. Um, Another thing that I think, in terms of like, new players and oh, this is, I can't believe this was also just bullshit, which is the fact that you can see smokes. I mean, I guess it's similar in the sense of like some people see smokes in different ways. Like the idea that you can sit inside of a smoke and when it fades, you can see them before they can see you. That's ridiculous. I can't believe like again, if you're a new player, you can't learn that. The only way you like in a normal way, the only way you learn that is you die to it enough times and you watch professional players enough to where you see, hey, a lot of players sit inside of smokes when they're kind of like in a position of like, well, I don't really know what to do. You sit inside of a smoke and you wait until, the smoke fades to try to get a pick. Like it's just what you do. It's intuition. And like, yeah, experienced players don't think much of it anymore because it's just ingrained in your brain. But like for a new player, that is really difficult to figure out. And so to me, those two changes were incredibly important in terms of just how Counter Strike works, getting new players to play the game. And it doesn't dumb the game down. Like it's not like it's one of those changes where it's like, oh, but it dumbs the game. No, because those things, they're gimmicks. They're just gimmicks. They shouldn't be in the game to begin with. It just so happens that that's the way that smokes work. Like I truly believe, and I'll say this: if Counter Strike smokes were the way they are in this new CS2 version, and then you took the smokes from Go, and you said we're moving from, and you've been playing, and you say like, oh, we've been playing with the CS2 smokes for I don't know 10 years, and now we're going to the global offensive smokes. I can't imagine that anyone would look at them and be like, wait, you're telling me you can throw one ways and you can like sit inside of smokes and see people before they see you, and even though and there's glitches where occasionally for some fucking random reason you can see a player's outline while they're in the middle of a smoke running through it for no apparent reason other than the game is just shit, and for some reason that guy can now see your player outline while you're inside of a smoke, or like there's just things about the smokes and global offensive that made no sense to me that are now getting removed, and I think they're fantastic that those are being they've been basically, you know, they're not in the game anymore. Because I think they're gimmicks. They were just stupid gimmicks that existed and people accepted because they've been in the game forever. Um, and so I'm glad they're gone. That's the first thing I'll say about in terms of just the way that this is good for new players. In terms of professional play and whatnot, some of the changes. So, because I'm looking at the videos, the I like the fact that I was worried at first with the bullet hole thing, like I mentioned earlier, that it was going to be a problem in terms of, spamming smokes and just being able to see the person. But honest to God, like it looks like when you spam smokes, it's actually worse for the person spamming than it is the person who's receiving the spam. Like if anything, I think it's fantastic, and here's why. Because how many fucking times were people complaining about the M4A1S meta, and people just basically on CT side, you would just win rounds off of spamming smokes. You get 2 kills off of smoke spam, and the game's just fucking over, and you have to wait till the next round, and everyone's saving because it's the save meta. Like, that's probably not going to be a thing anymore, or at least it's going to be very much reduced. Like, people just don't think of the positives of some of this stuff. Like the amount of CT side rounds where people would just spam smokes, get kills, rounds over, is was insane, especially in the past year or so. And that looks like it's going to be something that gets punished a lot more frequently because if you're spamming a smoke, you have to be very, very conscious of the fact that your tracers are going through and making such an impact in the smokes. Again, on the outside on the outer edges of the smoke, right? But even if you're spamming the smoke on the inside, in the middle portion, you're still giving away where your exact position is. Whereas before, yeah, there were tracers, but it wasn't your exact position. It was still relatively hard for you to actually get killed spamming a smoke if you knew what you were doing and you AD'd and AD'd while you were doing it. It became difficult. So I do think this is a really good change in terms of just, hey, it actually looks like it benefits the person who's not spamming the smoke, which is, I think, not what people were originally thinking when they heard the idea. I think when people heard the idea, their first thoughts were like, dude, I'll just spam the smoke and I can just see a guy crossing and I can just spam him, like, because I'll literally see him as I'm shooting bullets just to get vision and get information. I think it'll be a cool thing to, yeah, sure, it helps you get information visually if you're the person spamming, but it gives away your position very easily and you're very susceptible to dying because of it. So I think that's like a really, actually kind of a good change. I really like that fact, and I really like that at least if you're spamming the middle of the smoke, there's no Negev meta. That's not going to be a thing, hopefully. It doesn't look like it anyway. It doesn't look like it
No, it
benefits that
doesn't.
much. The opt isn't blasting a massive hole through the smoke. It's not doing that. Yeah, the outer edges do get blown up a little bit, and if you want to lower that slightly, so that it's similar to what it looks like in the middle of the smoke, maybe that's a fine change. I don't know. I still don't think it impacts it that much. Um, especially because it's different these days with, now the smokes are volumetric and they change, and so, the outer edge of the smoke one time may not be the outer edge of the smoke the next time. It kind of just depends. Um, so I think that's an interesting thing. In terms of the HE grenades blowing up smokes, I loved this change when I first saw it. I thought it was fantastic. It changes the game entirely, and I do agree. I do think it's going to be interesting to see how players use it. The example that gets used all the time is outside on nuke. Because what the fuck are T's gonna do about CTs throwing HE grenades into the smokes and just seeing you as you cross whenever, and they can do it whenever they want. And as T, you have no idea what's going on. Yeah, that's true. Maybe instead of throwing smokes that go closer to red, you have to throw the smokes that are closer towards hut and garage and whatnot, because it's not, you can blow up that smoke, but when that smoke blows up, you're not going to see as much as if you put it closer to red. Maybe that's something that they do.
Yeah,
In my opinion, I actually think it might be a cool strategic thing for tees, because obviously it's a great way to get players to waste their utility, which is something that's very important on T sides, is just wasting CT utility as much as you can. So now smoke grenades are a great way to get rid of other players' HE grenades. Which, so instead of, being a T and taking that HE damage, instead you can say, throw it at this fucking smoke. Like, I don't have to
yeah,
take the damage anymore, because it's going to that smoke grenade for that, 3 seconds of information that it, or 3 to 4 seconds of information that it's going to get them. So I think it's a great way to bait out utility from the T side. Again, don't know how that's going to work on outside. Don't know what people are going to do about that. That does seem like a little bit of a concern in terms of the meta for Nuke. It is a very unique map where that is very prevalent in how that map is played. So I'm interested to see how that works. Obviously, you're not going to be able to just fucking spam nades into the smoke. That's not going to be a thing. And I do wonder if people are going to throw smokes, like I said, that go more closer toward, I guess that would be
like
like credit
the big
card.
setup. Yeah, the big
Yeah,
setup where it's like mini credit card and like
because
garage,
even if
that
you
those
blow open
kind
those smokes, yes, you'll see a gap, but it won't be as big of a gap, and you won't get as much
of right.
information as if you're throwing things that are closer to red. But who knows? Who knows how that goes? And potentially, you may not need as many smokes because of how the volumetric smoke works. So potentially, you're not wasting as many smoke grenades. Potentially, we don't know yet. We
Maybe.
haven't really seen how nuke works. But that's just my brief thoughts on that. I do think that blowing over the smokes, I do think it's a little bit too long. I do agree that it probably shouldn't be. I think it's like like you were saying,
It's like
three
3 to
seconds.
3.5 or something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
think it should be about maybe half that. I think is fine.
Yeah,
I think if it's 1 to 1.5 seconds, I think that's pretty good.
yeah,
Um,
that'd be pretty.
as long as it doesn't look goofy. I don't want HEs blowing open smokes and just immediately reforming really quickly and looking stupid as fuck. Like, I do think it shouldn't be too short, but I don't think it is should be nearly as long as it is right
As long as
now.
it is. Yeah.
Um,
I wonder if it should almost do like a depending on where that. I think it might already do that, but
Depending on where the HE lands,
where the
it,
HE
it does.
lands.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, I was not sure. I
Yeah, in
haven't
this
seen
in
the.
this example actually that I'm looking at on their website, somebody throws an HE smoke, or an HE nade, on a smoke that's honestly, the smoke is in the middle of fucking nowhere. I don't know why anyone would throw a smoke here. But who knows? Maybe it's now meta. But it's kind of like in this weird area, um, and the guy's like standing behind it. He could look, and the nade blows open half the smoke, and he can
Okay,
see
all right.
monster, and then he switches over to see short. So it does depend on where the HE lands. And I think Flom was even saying you have to be careful on where the HE lands, because it can change where, how much of the smoke it blows up, if it blows up the whole thing or just some of it. And so I
Yeah,
think that's interesting. Um, but yeah, but I think it's a unique change. I really like the change. I think it's on brand with Counter Strike, and I think it's a really cool change. Again, maybe make it 1.5 seconds instead of like 3.5. I think that would be a fair change to make. But I
yeah.
have the same opinion where it's like, look, everyone said Molotovs were going to break the game and Global Offensive was going to came out. They all said that it was shit, that it was a horrible change, and that nobody would use them. And now you can't even fucking watch a Counter Strike game without Molotovs being
That's
used. Um,
no, you can't even see some
and
pistol rounds without Molotov.
no, exactly. Molotovs get used all the time. And yes, I do understand Molotovs were changed after they were introduced. There were updates after that to modify them. And so that's exactly what I'm advocating for these smokes. I think the changes are going to be made to these smoke grenades, but I don't want them to get rid of the feature altogether just because you don't like it.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think
I
that
like
that's
the
a fair
feature. I think
criticism.
that feature just needs to be tweaked.
Yeah, it just needs to be tweaked a little bit, but I think it's a good change. Um, In terms of the, well, I guess the volumetric stuff I already talked about, I think it's unique. I think it's a nice change. Yes, it's not as predictable, but I do think that that is potentially a good thing. And on your point on the look of them, yeah, I think they could look a little bit better. And I'm very curious to see what they look like under lower um, settings because I think a lot of
Yeah,
people right now just want to see all the fancy effects and stuff, and
new
so they have it
shit.
all on
Yeah.
high settings. So I want to see what the game looks like on low settings with these smokes. Hopefully, it doesn't look dog shit. But hopefully they can make it better and make it look a little bit cleaner. But actually, I don't mind it too much. The one thing that I'm very different than you on is I don't like the fact that they're color coded. I actually
Okay.
don't like the fact that they're color coded because to me, funnily enough, if there was anything that I think they that I'm mad that they did that's almost in a way similar to, well, that is very similar to fucking Valorant. It's the fact that like this shit is color coded. Like I actually
Yeah.
don't like that it's color coded because I do think it's important that players are aware enough to recognize, hey, is that something that the enemy threw or that I threw or that my teammates threw? I want people to have to like actually think about that in terms of,
Yeah.
hey, who threw this smoke? I don't think it matters. I will say I don't think it matters as much as it used to because I think obviously with the addition of one-way smoke or the way one-way smokes worked in Go, I think obviously one-way smokes were an obvious point where you'd be like, well, I want them to be color coded because again, you can throw a one-way through in window. You throw the one-way in window at some point while the other window smoke is up, and then all of a sudden the regular window smoke fades. You have your one-way up, and now you're looking through your one-way, and so
That's
that
what I
would be
would
an
do.
obvious, yeah, and so that's an obvious one where you're like, well, I wish it was color coded so that I know that it was their fucking smoke and it's a one-way. But now that one-ways aren't a thing, I don't personally
Yeah.
really see the point of it other than it just kind of
Well,
I don't think
I
it's going
think
to play a huge role, honestly. Like, it's
I
not
don't
a
think it
massive
will,
change.
but I think if we're still keeping in mind, right, the new player base that we're trying to feed towards, I think it will help them,
Oh, I think it helps them. I just
right?
don't think it's a necessary thing
I,
that they need.
yeah.
Like, I think
I
that's something that
almost
as a new
yeah.
player you can learn on your own. I don't think it's like a
I think
massive
that is
change.
something you can learn on your own. It might be one of those things where they're I think I kind of agree that they're babying it a little bit with that. Um I like it to the point of I don't think it will affect high level play,
Hmm.
and in the way that it will affect lower casual play will more than likely just be positive overall. It will be less any negatives that could probably come from it will be minimal. So I think it's one of those null kind of options again.
Yeah,
I
I
like
do
them more than
think,
I don't, but I don't
yeah,
think it will be super effective.
I do think maybe it's something where it doesn't get used in just when you're playing the game, but it gets used in like observing. I think that would
That would
be an
be I
interesting
think that would
idea.
be
Like I
kind of
think that
cool.
would be a nice
Yeah.
tweak. If it maybe wasn't in the game when you're playing it, but it's in the game when you're observing it, so that you can see, hey, look at this. They threw a smoke here
Oh, the
because,
tease through this smoke.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I think especially with the smokes being volumetric now, I'm just gonna keep using that term because that's what they used. I don't know how else to fucking describe it. Um, and how they interact with each other and how they can like, if you have two smokes next to each other, they can almost like merge into one massive
Yeah.
smoke.
They like
Um,
hit each other, then fill
yeah, it's
up.
like they
And,
combine. Like that's one where I think like that's one where I'm like if they're color coded, it makes it like I don't know. It just
it does
it's
get
like
a
you
little
know you're
goofy.
in the other person's smoke. Like I want it to be like you don't know if you're in their smoke. Like you don't know when you've crossed over into their
Yeah.
smoke. It's something that you have to be cognizant of. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But I think for observing, it would be really cool to see that because you'd be like, oh look,
Yeah.
they've these are the different smoke. Oh look, this CT through this smoke. The one that's coming to my mind is like when you're playing on CT side Mirage and you're on ticket booth or you're playing ticket booth and the A nades are coming, and a lot of times people will throw a smoke
Oh,
that lands
yeah,
right in
they'll
front of
right hand in
triple,
front so
and
they can get
they'll move
out.
over
Yeah.
into triple, and kind of they can play around that smoke and do a bunch of different things. That would be really cool from an observing standpoint if you've got
Hmm.
those two different smokes, right? And you can kind of see, okay, look, they're trying to play around the smoke. Now, obviously, they're volumetric. Who knows if that smoke even works anymore? But I don't like that in the sense of like, hey, if you're entering onto Mirage and you're seeing all those smokes in CT, you can clearly see that the CT smoked there and that they're probably going to be in either triple or around the smoke on the other side.
Right.
So, to that degree, I mean, it is relatively obvious when somebody throws that smoke, but again, it just makes it even more obvious, and I don't think it needs to be. So, look, who knows? I don't think it's a big change, and I might even end up playing the game and being like, honestly, who fucking cares? Like, it does not matter at all. But honestly, overall, I'm very positive on these changes. I really don't think they're that bad. I think people are focusing a lot on the negatives of this change, and they're not focusing on the good things of this change.
Agree.
Like I said, I think the biggest and most underrated change that happens with this is that people are going to realize all of the problems with the old smokes, like the one ways, not being able to see smokes the same way as other people, sitting inside of smokes and letting them fade, and then you can see. I don't really remember what I was saying. Um, I think it was about the smokes. All I'll say very quickly because we've already fucking spent like an hour talking about CS2. Uh, which listen, not a bad thing. But it's just I think overall, like smoke changes are good. I like the smoke changes. I think it's something that people will get used to, and honestly, people will not want to ever go back to the old smokes. Um, and I think anyone who wants to go back to the old smokes is forgetting all the problems with the old smokes. Um, I think the changes are really good. I really like CS2. I really think it's going to be good for the game. I think it's going to be fantastic. I'm glad the major's not happening at the end of the year. I know it sucks there's not another major, but I do think it gives teams plenty of time to get used to
Oh, is
CS2
that
and so that
confirmed?
we get an actual fucking major um,
Is the
instead
second
of
is the second not happening? Is that confirmed?
yeah, there's not going to be
Oh,
there's not going to be a second major this year. They're moving
jeez.
it to basically this time in spring of 2024, which I
That's
actually like because I think it gives teams
I do
enough
like
time to
that.
really, really get used to the game so that we don't have some bullshit fucking major winner who won because they grinded CS2 faster and longer than everybody else. Um, which, listen, I shouldn't be saying that as an EG fan because in theory, we should be fucking doing that because EG is so fucking bad, we're not going to play in any other fucking events for the rest of the year pretty much. And so they have all the time in the world to play CS2. But genuinely, on a serious note, instead of me joking about EG and how bad they are, um, I do think it's a good change. I do think it's good that they're doing that. I think that's the best way to handle it. It does suck there's not another major. Majors have been very spotty in terms of how many we've had over the past couple of years, but I think this is the right decision overall, and I think
Mhm.
people were going to complain either way. Um, but in terms of CS2, I really, really like it. I'm looking forward to playing it. Valve, if you don't give me a fucking no, I'm just kidding. But no, I really like it. I think it's gonna be fantastic. I can't wait to get my hands on it, and yeah, I'm just really fucking excited. I think it's gonna be so
I
fucking
think
sick.
I think it's gonna be awesome. I think it's just gonna be so new. I think the thing when Valorant came out, everybody was like, "Oh, it's just I love playing it because it's just new. It's something new, right?" CS just gets and they're not wrong, right? It just gets monotonous over time, especially when you've played it for thousands and thousands of hours. You just do the same thing over and over again, but whether you can execute it or not is what you're really questioning. And I think this is just gonna it's just basically pumping adrenaline into a body, right? Like you're just giving it a little bit new life, some more changes, some more new player friendly stuff, right? And I think the HUD is like really interesting. That's just going to take getting used to. I think what people are complaining about are things that in the long run you'll just come to learn and come to get used to, and it'll just be second nature again, like in Go. I think I do understand that it's hard to let go of what CS:GO has, right? Because it's been out for 10 fucking plus years, right? Like when you're one of those guys that just got on CS:GO and played every single day for the past 10 years, obviously when something new comes out or a new dynamic change to the smokes or new utility right comes out, you're going to be a little bit reluctant because that's just not what you're used to playing. But I don't think you can say I like Valorant because it's something new and then Valve gives us something new and then you start complaining. I don't think you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? Like you gotta choose a side. You either want everything to be the exact same and you only play CS:GO, or you're really up for change and that you're going to get used to this. And I like it. I'm the same way. I can't wait to maybe one day get my limited test beta key, or I'll be waiting till the summer when it officially comes out. Either way, I'm super excited. I think it's going to be a fun time, and I've put 30, 3,500 hours in this game, and I can't really wait to do another 35 on CS2s.
All right, yeah, there you go. Yeah, so I guess that's how we'll end the discussion of CS2. Let us know what you guys think of CS2. What do you guys think of the changes? I'm interested to hear it. There's been so many different opinions, so I'm curious to hear everybody else's opinions on it. Um, But uh, let's move on to something that we definitely will have opinions on, which is EG, um, and the massive amount of news that has come out over the time frame of one fucking week, because it is just a continuation. It's like February couldn't have been more insane, and now March is just like also still fucking insane. It just feels like news just doesn't die even when the team's not playing. But good news is there will be one more team that we don't have to worry about playing, which is EG White, because EG White has finally been just extricated from the Blueprint
Thank
roster
God.
project. There is no longer an EG White, and while I feel bad in the sense that players do not get paid a salary anymore by EG,
Right.
I think even for those players, this is a much fucking better situation to be in, because these players very much could have gone to the major. Now, I think it sucks because they didn't get a chance to qualify for this major, and now there's not going to be a major for a fucking year. So those guys, unfortunately, missed out on basically an entire year of
They
majors.
got cucked.
They
They
got
straight up got
fucked.
cucked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they got destroyed by this. E.g., I kind of wish they had done this and made this decision earlier than this,
Earlier.
so that the players could have had an opportunity to qualify for the fucking major, because they definitely would have. That EG White roster is good enough to qualify. Um, so that does suck, but I think this is better for the players. And I think that this is exactly what we were looking for. And I don't want to digress into all the reasons as to why EG White never
Right.
should have been a
Yeah.
thing,
We've
or
been talking
all the
about this
problems with
shit
it.
for fucking
It's the
months,
same
right? Like,
reasons everyone's talked about.
yeah.
Valens mentions it in his fucking interview with Ryan at Dust 2. Like,
Right.
I think everyone has gone over exactly why why the EG White team specifically doesn't make any sense. Because if they're not fucking, like I said, if they're not playing in some of these other, it doesn't fucking matter. The team just shouldn't fucking be here. And I'm glad they're not here. As terrible as that sounds. Um, and I think who's the coach? I always get them mixed up.
Munster. Munster.
Munster, right? So I think
Cheese man.
he's staying, potentially staying with EG. I
Yep.
think. I'm
As of
not
right
sure.
now, he is with the team. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
so it's unclear as to whether or not he'll stay with EG or if he'll go with the Party Astronaut guys. I don't know if they're going to be Party Astronaut. They probably, I don't know if they will be, but whatever they end up doing, don't know if they're going to go with, if he's going to go with them or not. But I do think overall this is a obviously good change. Happy they did it. And I think now we can finally start using those resources and just focus on two fucking rosters instead of having to focus on three. Focus on two rosters with this massive fucking coaching staff you've got, and really develop it, because EG Black has been developing extremely well.
they
And I
are
think,
extremely good at this point.
yeah,
Very so.
and I think like this is the opportunity to really just use those extra resources and really focus on two teams instead of having to worry about a third team, and not even have to worry about how they're playing, but have to worry about what fucking events they can go to. Because yeah, Valens mentions in the interview the fact that EG White is technically one of the only team, the only team that won something, but like just like, dude, they would have won that shit if they were fucking Party Astronauts. Like
Yeah.
they
They
were
would
good
have.
enough
Yeah.
regardless. They didn't fucking need to be under EG in order to do that. You didn't develop them into fucking winning Fragadelphia. They were already good enough to do that.
They
They would
were
have done
already
that on
probably
their
gonna
own.
win Fragadelphia.
They would have done that on their own. So I don't really qualify that, frankly. That's just a nice cheap shot you can get in.
Yeah,
But
I think to keep this segment short, right?
yeah,
Like we talked about it for months. I think we're both on the same page of it sucks that these guys are now not getting paid, right? They're not getting money in the door every week or however often they got paid. But from a competitive standpoint and the fact they get to play, we already saw it with DJ, right? Like DJ when he said, "I played more with my first 2 weeks with ATK than I did with EG White." And now I'm so happy to see because I'm such big fans of these guys that were way back originally the New England Whalers, right?
yep,
Pone, like Bentley. I'm such big fans of these guys, and not being able to see them play just is like was really depressing. And now I'm happy, hopefully happy to say we'll see them in ECL. They might even get a shot at getting into EPL, right?
that's
Like
very true. Yep,
that's a huge thing. And I know people are going to focus on the negatives of what EG did, and I think that's completely fair. But now that EG White has been released, I mean, we now in tier two have EG Black, who is in their own right now a pretty good fucking
they're a
team.
top NA team.
We have ATK who went to EPL. We have Nouns, who's a really good team. We have now EG White will be back, and they're as long as they return to form and how they were playing previously, they're a really good team. So in terms of tier two Counter Strike, we now have four tier two ish teams, right? That can compete in the low tier one events and qualify for some of these tier one events, right? So overall, NA tier two is looking better. Um, I will say that I get to give a brief overview. I get that in theory, the three team thing could have worked if they would have sent someone to Europe, like we
Yes.
always talked about, someone in We Play. They just never did it. I mean, I made that fucking tweet where just I hate that they say in their announcement that they're combining EG White, EG Black. I think that is such a disservice to every player on that EG White team because nobody from EG White ever went to EG Black. We never saw. I think maybe Viz subbed in on Black for like a cash cup or something like that, right? But no HLTV official thing, no nothing. So I think it's such a big disservice to say we're combining EG White and EG Black. No, you're not. You're just dropping EG White. Just say it how it is. Everybody knows that's how it is. Don't try to sugarcoat the shit of it's a combine or uh, bringing in all resources into one. No, that's not what it is. You're keeping Munster. You're dropping the five players. Done. They didn't. They had an original plan, realized it wasn't gonna fucking work, and then they just cucked EG White for a long time. Own up to it. It was a mistake on your part, and it's fine. I think people saw that it was a mistake, and if they were to just said what I said, right? Hey, we thought we can make something really cool happen with three teams. We don't. We don't think it's any more possible. We're releasing the EG White guys. Thank you for everything you did. I think everybody would be super understanding of okay. They realized they kind of fucked up by signing three guys, like three teams. But at least we're letting these guys go, and now they're able to do whatever they want. EG Black is looking fucking sick. I'm still questioning on what Stanislaw is going to end up doing because it looks like Hex is just officially going to be with EG Black.
Yeah.
Him and Junior are just going to be fucking tier two competition for us, and then maybe never get a fucking sign up to the tier one team. Who knows? But I'm glad it's just they're focusing on two teams. I hope that maybe they can start designating more stuff coaching wise, right? Because now that there isn't three teams, I am gonna start questioning the whole cooks in the kitchen scenario, especially if Munster's saying because now we have Munster, we have Axe, we have Valens, we have Vorberg, we have Malik, we have Mad Cow, we have Sheikh Zula. That's seven coach slash analysts slash managers that who knows what they. We know Valens is the overall arching rocket scientist god. From what I've heard from Nate, i.e., Mad Cow, is that he's kind of just the everyday. When they travel, he's the team
Hmm.
manager. Where are we going to eat? Where are we
Yep.
staying? Is this? Are we on time? And then Vorberg, Shake are assistants. I'm just curious on what Munster is going to do for the org, right? Because he's always been that PA coach. That guy. Is he going to stay as an analyst? Is he gonna maybe be an assistant to Malik? Because as far as I'm aware, Malik's on his own because Levy went back to France, right? And they kind of split up. So maybe he'll be an assistant to Malik. Maybe he'll be even a co-coach with Axed, right? Depending on how they want to go there. But I think overall, good job. You deleted one roster that we've been saying for fucking since they got signed. Um, it was good in theory, but in practicality, which I learned in my job all the time, is completely fucking different. Um, but I wish they just would have owned up to it a little bit more instead of saying trying to sugarcoat it. But I think overall, it's going to be a positive for everybody, minus the wallets of EG White. They're going to have to start earning their money now.
Yeah.
That sounds like a dick way to say it, but they're going
Yeah,
to have
but
to
I
start
understand what
earning
you're
their money.
saying. They're not getting a paycheck from EG
Yeah,
anymore. I will say I agree with you. I do think EG just there's just a fucking tendency where and other orgs do this, but EG just it's every fucking time. It's never their fault. Like they never why couldn't they have just owned up to the mistake? Instead, they gotta they gotta lie to you after everyone in their mother could tell you that it was a mistake that, that they weren't handling EG White in the best way because it's not that like the idea was fucked from the start, but there were clearly decisions that needed to be made with EG White that just did not get made, whether it was
It just never
because
happened.
yeah, which I think the biggest one indictment is yeah, we play was never a thing because the EG White roster was too old. But then it's like, okay, well send them to fucking Europe. Just send them to Europe. Like
There's so many CCT tournaments that happened, right? Like
yeah,
there's
and
a
it's just
bunch
like
of
just
tier
send them
two
to
little
Europe. Just
tournaments.
even if it's just scrims with other teams, like you have the money. You can't fucking tell me Peak Six and fucking now signing a sponsorship deal with Chevron. You don't have the fucking money to send
No,
this team to Europe and just scrim. Like so they didn't manage it properly. Own up to the fact that you fucked it up. Yeah, look, in Valence's interview, he mentions, oh, well, we didn't technically want to get rid of all the EG White players, but when we were analyzing it and we were looking into what we wanted to do in terms of how to downsize, we realized we really wanted to keep the core of EG Black, and then we kind of just ended up deciding to keep the entirety of EG Black. Okay, so maybe your intention wasn't to get rid of the whole EG White roster, but guess what? That's what you fucking did. So can you at least
that's
just
what happened.
say we
Just say
got rid
that
of
that's what
EG
happened.
White? Because like I won't lie, you kind of indirectly got me pretty good on Twitter. Because I literally was like, well, what the fuck do we call this roster now? What EG Gray? Because it's fucking what a mix between white and black. Like what the fuck is this? And I
Yeah.
was kind of just doing it as a joke because I thought it was
Right,
funny.
right.
And I was like, EG Gray, like what? You can't fucking
There
sum
we
that up
go.
any better. But yeah, you did kind of get me because it's the fucking EG Black roster still, so it doesn't even
That's
it's
all
not even any
it is.
different.
Yeah.
It's not there is no mix. It's just it's just EG Black. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I thought that was funny.
I honestly feel bad, right? Like I think I get what Valens was saying, right? Like I do believe Valens. Anything that
No, I
Valens
do.
says,
Yeah, I do.
I think I believe him, and I do. I bet they probably did think about integrating one or two players from that EG White
Definitely.
roster,
I can't
but
imagine Momo wasn't a
right,
consideration. You know what I mean? Like
right,
dude's been
Momo or
insane.
even maybe Viz, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I think Janji's such a system player within Binleet's team that it's hard to
yeah.
slot Janji in anywhere. But I think when you look at Black and how successful they've been in their own right in ECL, it's probably hard to say, yeah, we want to now break up the EG Black core, right? Like you said, um, I think if anybody probably gets out of that EG Black team, it's maybe Rush. If we're really shooting for this whole academy approach now, because it is now a true like academy roster, because we only have one.
Yeah.
Maybe Rush, but he's been playing pretty well. He is that one veteran guy, right? That plays super
I do think
well.
they need at least Rush.
Um, but I think it will be curious to see what happens to Stanislaw now, right? Like, does he go and play somewhere else, or one of my buddies mentioned like, oh, what if he goes and coaches the EG White roster, right? And they make like their own little team main org.
Maybe.
I think I think now the options are a lot higher for this EG Black team. Um, Especially with Junior. Junior's been killing it. Obviously, like we fucking said he would be in tier two.
Yep.
He's
He's
gonna do
smurfing.
really really well. So is Hex. Hex
So
has
is
been doing
Hext.
extremely well. Um, I'm curious to see if Hex is gonna be moving on at some because I'm curious to know if Hex will be one of those Grim situations, right? Where Grim was not super good in Liquid, right? He had his moments, just like Hex had some of his moments, right? But as soon as Grim got back in whatever his true role was originally, because we see in Black that Walko is now putting Hex in the roles that he originally played, and Hex is popping the fuck off. Um, if maybe he'll find another tier one team that was like, okay, if Hex plays these certain positions and roles, he can be a really good NA fucking player. So I'm curious to see if that will happen. I'm wondering if what will happen with George. George seemed to be struggling a little bit as of late.
He has been struggling recently. Yes.
Um, like I said, Junior popping off. Stanislaw's been out with Hex coming in. Rush is just right. He's that vet guy, and Walko has been doing his thing, calling the way that I would never call a game, but it seems to work for Black sometimes. So good on him, I guess. Um, but no, overall for the EG White section, great job. You did it. Black. Focus on the two teams you have, and let's see what we can do. Because now the resources are fucking infinite. You can't say, "Oh, I was focused on the EG Whites demos and helping them out." Nah, you can't fucking say that. I don't even think you could say that before because what the fuck are they gonna play that they're gonna use those demos in, right? But now it's like, oh, these guys with black, these guys with the main, maybe Malik in between, right? They now have 10 guys, I guess 15 if you count gold, right? Um, with infinite amount of resources, 7 to 8 coaches, and like guys, I have so much experience. They now just need to come together and make it like actually work with the main roster primarily.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I'll say, in terms of EG Black, I'm pretty excited for the roster. I do question. I think at this point, what I question is the player development side of it. In terms of like when I see, obviously, I think Hext is in a different situation than Junior in the sense that Hex is coming from a place where I think, look, I don't know that there was any North American player, I don't care how talented, that you would have put in the situation Hex was in the
Mhm.
past year or so and would have
That
succeeded.
would have done well. Yeah,
I think it's just really fucking difficult, man. Um, Whereas
I
with
agree.
Junior, he's had his chances, and I think at this point, Junior's at a position in his career where the only way that he's going to actually develop into, um, getting
The
past his
OC of NA, right?
yeah, like the only way he's going to get past his inability to perform against EU or tier one competition is just playing tier one competition. Because look, it hasn't changed. Junior is just as aggressive as he ever was. The dude pushes smokes when you're like, why the fuck is he pushing that? And he'll get a kill and he'll get away with it and pull off amazing stuff. And that's the stuff he always does. And
That
so
is.
that's the kind of stuff that I look at and I'm like, that won't work. That just won't work. You won't be able to get away with that in a tier one game. So in my mind, I know Junior is smurfing. I said he was going to, but I don't know what you're doing to develop Junior at this point. You know what I mean? Like he's not playing tier one team. And now I will say one good thing is they are playing in the Blast Showdown instead of the
That
main
will be
team,
super
which
interesting.
I think is a good thing.
I think a
However,
lot of people were fucking on that call, and I kind of like it, honestly.
well, I think it's a really good call. I agree. I think it's a good decision. However, I will point out, somebody did point this out, and I very much agree with it, which is that this is the same fucking thing that happened back when the Stewie 2K roster blew the fuck up. Nobody knew what was going on with the EG roster. They were supposed to play in events in Europe and in Asia, and they didn't. And instead, they sent the fucking Party Astronauts team, or whatever the fuck, to go to those events, and they shit the bed and were terrible. And it's the same fucking thing. The whole reason they did it, it wasn't because they wanted to develop those players. It was because they just sent them out there because the main roster was in such a fucking shitty position
Disarray, yeah.
because the players didn't want to play anymore that they just basically couldn't play them. So I do worry that this is the same fucking thing and that this trend will not continue, that they won't send EG Black to do other kinds of events that are in Europe and just get them to have more experience playing better teams because I think that's exactly what they need. Players like Hex are good enough they can go play against the upper tier 2 EU scene and the lower tier 1 scene and get very valuable experience from that and actually improve as players. They're not gaining nearly fucking anything from playing the same North American players and teams they've been playing for the past 3 years. They're not going to get that much better. They're just not. I don't care about what resources you have on EG that other teams don't. The whole point of those resources is to go and send them places they can't go with another roster because they don't have the funds to be able to do that. So I do worry about the player development aspect of EG Black in that regard because I don't know what you're doing to develop Junior and make him better. I don't know what you're doing in terms of what Hext is going to be doing moving forward. Now, granted, my thing with Hext is I think this was the most important thing for Hext to regain was his mental. I think his mental was absolutely fucking shot because if guys that month of February might have been the worst month in some of these players' entire lives, like in their real life lives. It was that bad.
Yeah.
It all happened literally. I'm still shocked that it happened all within the time frame of 1 month. Like it is insane to me that it all happened in 1 month. Um, like his mental coming back was the most important fucking thing because you just don't know with EG players, dude. Cirque seemingly has never gotten his mojo back. Breeze still doesn't really have it back. He's got it a little bit, but not much. Like you worry about that when it's an EG player. And so seeing that Hex made that tweet, that he feels better about it, and I would be hesitant about that regarding all the news about, players faking tweets and whatnot with EG and being told to tweet certain things. But I think it's been proven in his performances in tier two
Yeah.
so far.
He's
The
feeling
dude
better, dude.
literally I looked at his stats. The past month, the last month that he has played, which has been with EG Black, he has a 1.21 rating. And I was being told by people that they didn't believe in Hext anymore. He wasn't good enough. He'll never make it in tier one. All this bullshit. And I see this and I'm like, clearly the kid is talented. And he was put in, like, when you look at the context, he just was never put in a fantastic position to succeed. Or even if it wasn't like, I'm not specifically blaming people like Vorborg and the coaching staff and the players and how the team was structured and whatnot. I also blame the organization a lot, actually most of it, because I do think the role change, while it was weird for Hext, I thought he was kind of getting the hang of it. But what are you supposed to do when an article comes out about you being racist in the past, and then and then you make an apology, and nobody from EG defends you? Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody vouches for your moral standards. Nobody vouches for the fact that you've changed and that was you when you were alone. You know what I mean? Like nobody cares. Nobody's saying anything. And then on top of all that, just all the shit that was going on with EG at the time, like I just don't believe that any player would have succeeded. But spoiler, none of the EG players succeeded. Nobody, not
Yeah.
even Automatic and fucking Breeze and Nealon, who all get a pass seemingly, especially Automatic. He always gets a pass because he is our best player, but he does get a pass when stuff like this happens and he doesn't perform because guess what? The whole team isn't performing. So
Yeah.
it's just like I don't know. I always thought that angle was very weird. I think Hex is going to be fine. I think he's going to, I think this is
I think he's
this
gonna do
this
fine.
is important for him so that his mental can come back. So that then maybe if a role opens up for him where it makes sense to move him into the main roster, he moves into the main roster. And if that roster spot doesn't end up happening and he decides, look, I have an offer from a different team because I'm smurfing on EG Black right now, and
I
somebody
could
else has
take it.
offered
Yeah.
me a contract and I can play the role I want to play, I'll take that instead. I think that's perfectly fine. I think that's what needs to happen. I do
Yeah. If
question
he,
also Junior because it's like they want Junior to like be used to be eventually on the main team, but then what Valens seems to be talking about in terms of why they picked Wiz over Mantu is because of Wiz's playstyle and how he's a very
style.
conservative opper, and
Yeah, and
Junior
that's
is
the
just
complete
so
180
far
of
and away
Junior.
from
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I'm just like, is Junior ever going to join the main roster? And
Yeah. I
even
don't
if
know.
he does, it's going to change the playstyle of the team entirely, and it just feels like you're picking up Junior because he's literally the best opper in NA at this point, other than, look, maybe Wiz is better. Who the fuck knows, right? I mean, the team has been so fucking bad. I don't really know it's fair to use his stats as a comparison, but like Junior
Yeah.
wasn't
Exactly.
spectacular either. So who the fuck actually knows who's better? But Junior, it's just like I feel like you're almost signing Junior because it's just like, well, he is the best opper in
Oh,
NA,
he's
and
Junior.
and
Yeah.
it's the next easiest. It's the easiest decision to make, and nobody's gonna give a shit for it. So look, I don't really understand that. I think that's a little
Yeah.
strange. Um, but overall, I'd say I'm excited about EG Black. They did just lose to ATK in the lower consolidation final, whatever the fuck, in playoffs of ECL, which I think
Doesn't
is,
matter though.
yeah, which doesn't matter, but I also think it's about as good as they were going to get. Yes, I
I
know
agree with
ATK
that.
was
Yeah.
playing with one of their players who has like fucking, I think Bowden had ridiculous
Bowden.
ping or something
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
because Bowden's from Sweden. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, ATK literally just came off of an EPL where they
You know,
fought Astralis to a best of
and
three, almost beat
battling
Astralis,
tier
and
one teams, and they come back to
so
NA
much
tier
experience
two.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So like I think they're just in a good position, all feeling really good about themselves. So I think that was going to be a tough one. And they did, they went to three maps the first time, second time not as close, but about as good as you're going to get. I mean, they lost to AT. The only teams that did better than them were what ATK and MIBR.
Yeah. Strife. They beat Strife as well.
Well, they beat Strife, but I'm saying the only teams that did better
Oh,
than EG Black, I guess, were ATK and
DK and
MIBR, right?
MIBR.
And
Yeah. I
MIBR is
think
just on
what?
another level with Insanity now. So I don't know,
Yeah.
man. Like,
I can't remember who else came third, fourth in that, but
yeah, I'll
oh,
take a
they're on
look.
the set. They're on the. Oh no, so MIBR won actually just now.
Mm,
Beat ATK, and then yeah, EG Black was third in ECL, which is like
I think
all
that's good.
things considered,
Really good.
MIBR is insane. They're looking really fucking good.
Yep.
ATK just came off of EPL, so they're hot. Mental's great. I mean, EG Black to be better than Strife, huge. Nouns, huge. Team one, that's great.
Nice win.
I mean, they did better
And
than
mind you,
Pain.
yes, definitely, some of these teams are going to be teams they're playing in the showdown. Look, I don't have any expectations for this team in the showdown. I think they're good. I just look. only one team is making it out of the showdown, and it's not going to be EG Black. I'm
It's
sorry.
not
It's
gonna
just
be
not
EG
going to be
Black.
EG
It won't.
Black. There's too many good teams. You're not beating fucking Team Liquid. Like, I'm sorry. You're just not. I know Team Liquid has been shit recently, and they've had some very underwhelming performances. I do not believe that you're going to be better than Team Liquid, Complexity, fucking, I think Fury is in there, like MIBR. Like,
Yeah.
you're
So
not beating these teams.
our only chance realistically is that the bracket's actually out for EG Black
Yeah, I'm taking a look
for
at it
last.
now. Yeah, they got
So we
they
play
got fucking
Furia off
Fury
of
in the first. They're not even beating
yeah
them. Like, we can just
yeah
call it now. Like, they're not even
yeah
beating
and
Furia.
so in the yeah I mean you're not beating Furia. Maybe you get a map, which would be like huge. I think if we
That'd be
get a
nice.
map
That'd be
that
nice.
if we get a map that's even above expectation,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
I think honestly, if we get double digit rounds on both maps, that would be fucking
That'd be nice.
massive.
That'd be nice.
Um, but let's say in the pipe dream world we beat Furia, then you're telling me we have to play fucking. It's gonna be complexity. There's no fucking other way.
Yeah.
We have to play complexity. Yeah, that's not
Your
happening. Like we're
bracket,
not.
if it potentially making it through the whole bracket, your matchup might literally be Furia Complexity Liquid, the hardest possible bracket you could have.
Yeah,
It literally doesn't get any harder than that. Playing against Furia, Complexity, and Liquid, the three
yeah.
best fucking teams at the event. Like, I'm sorry, EG's not making it. Like, they're just not doing it.
I don't
But
even think
I'm
our main
curious,
roster
you
would
know?
make it. So
Yeah, I mean, listen, look, I don't think either roster is going to make it. So at this point, you might as well just throw in EG Black and see how they do. It's a good experience for them to play Furia.
I, I
Obviously, a
I
really
think
talented
this is
team. So,
yeah. I think this is more of an experience thing over when it was sending White out instead of the main team. Um, I think one, it probably is more of a hey, we're trying to seal the deal with refresh and get just reset
yep,
entirely for the fourth time, right?
yeah,
Let's send black and we can get them experience against the higher tier one of NA, right? The Furias and Imperials, but it's single elim, so like you're either playing one match or maybe two,
yeah.
probably just one. At least they're BO3, so they'll at least get a BO3 out
They're
of
at
it,
least getting
right?
two maps out of it.
I mean, they're at least getting two maps against Furia,
Yeah,
and we'll just see how it goes. I think
no pressure really.
that this can feed into the refresh thing, right? But
Yeah,
looking at EG Black, I don't know how this would ever eventually feed into the main team, right? So we have Junior, like what you talked about. Maybe one day, if Wiz keeps just not performing well, and they want a more aggressive opper and try to just tame Junior over forcing Wiz to be more aggro in some strats, right? Maybe they just try Junior. So I see that. In terms of George, can you justify George going in for big names like Automatic and Bree? Realistically, if you're from the org standpoint, from a fan standpoint, and statistically, we probably could. We could say, yeah, oh yeah, sub him in for Breeze. Just see how it fucking goes because Breeze has been playing not very well. But from an org standpoint, and obviously we saw how it was with Lowell and their whole thing of branding, right? Do you really sub in this 19-year-old kid that some people don't even know exists in for Breeze, who was a top 20 player in the world at some point? I don't know if you can, right? Because I think it's at this point confirmed that Hext is gone,
yeah,
right?
he's going EG
And
Black
then,
for sure.
and then, and then even let's say Hext, his mental gets right, it gets better. He's had that experience at tier one. He's getting his confidence back in tier two. He might be ready for a shot again.
Yep,
Can you justify him coming back into the fold for refresh, for Breeze, for one of these, maybe even fucking Nealon if they want to pick up a true IG? I guess Nealon is the more true IGL, but I think I get the this can fold into refresh is I get the refresh pickup and I almost kind of like it, right? But our talent on EG Black is starting to get pretty good in the fact of if they're gonna get a call, when will they actually get it? If they do.
yep,
And if we go outside to put refresh in for Hext, when are any of these black EG Black guys gonna get a call up to the main roster? And I think though, going back all the way to how you talked about Hex being put in a bad position, I think it's almost better because they're not now putting in George, 19-year-old, is supposed to save this fucking roster. He doesn't have that on his shoulders. I think bringing in Refresh, who has played in Sprout, played in Heroic, that is massive. People are always on Twitter fucking complaining like, "Oh, he's had a .98 rating or a 1.0." It doesn't fucking matter, dude. A 1.0 rating in Tier 1 EU CS is like a fucking 1.2, 1.3 in like NA. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just about his experience alone. And plus, he was IGLing with Sprout, right? So I think it's huge. I think if Refresh is put in the right spots with this roster, he could fucking pop off. But this is all in theory, right? Like knowing EG, maybe they fuck it up, maybe they don't. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, and
But
so I actually wanted to move to the refresh signing. Um, I think my views on this have slightly altered.
mhm,
Just I tried to take a look at it from like a Valens, like a GM perspective, and I think it's changed my opinion very slightly. I still think the biggest concern that I'll get out of the way now with the refresh signing is 100% how do these EG Black players feel about the fact that EG just signed or is potentially going to sign an EU rifler
and
over one
out
of
of
the riflers
conference,
that
yeah.
EG already has on EG Black, like George and Hext. Um, it just seems like surely you'd want to move one of those players in one of those
It seems
roles
like giving them the middle finger, right?
to some extent. Um, and it's just like so I understand how that's it's just I question, right? I feel like if you're an EG Black player at that point, you are seriously questioning if you will have an opportunity to join the main roster. And so I think that's the biggest concern is in
Hmm.
terms of, hey, as an EG Black player, how does this affect me, and what are my odds of actually getting on this team? Because clearly they are willing to outsource my position if it is better off to do so. Um, even if I'm having good results, I may not get selected. And so I think that is a valid concern that people can raise toward the refresh signing. However, when I look at this signing a little bit from differently from a GM perspective of what is best for the main roster, I honestly don't think EG could have signed a better player. And I mean that
I don't.
literally. Like, I actually don't think any other players qualify for what Refresh has and can bring to this team. There are not many players who are as young as Refresh, um, who have the experience that Refresh has. Mind you, guys, this is a player who's played in semifinals of a major before. He has been on the number one ranked team in the world multiple times in recent years. This is a very fucking good player. He's one of the most at LAN in when he was on heroic, he was one of the most clutch players in the world. He was known for being ice fucking cold in clutch scenarios.
Refresh
The
1v5, baby.
Yeah, the dude is just a fucking monster, right? When it comes to those scenarios. He's an incredibly talented young player with a lot of experience at the tier one level. Who not only has he done all of that when he was on heroic, but then went to Sprout, became an IGL, and did a
I
pretty
mean,
damn
Sprout's a
fucking
good
good
team
job
now.
with Sprout. Like honestly, like yeah, they never hit the highs that maybe they could have, but Sprout was actually a very canny little team. Like they were actually very fucking good, and Refresh was doing a seemingly good job at IGLing. And yeah, I'm sure it tanked his performance. I'm sure that's why his rating was lower than it was when he was on heroic, I would imagine. Um, but clearly that has to help a young guy like Refresh in terms of just like how you see the game, what ideas you can now bring into the fold for the next team that you join. And realistically, like because I kept thinking in my head, like, why would Refresh want to join EG of all fucking places? Like, look at the fucking horror stories that this org has had. Like, why would you want to join this team? Um, but looking at it from the EG side, who the fuck else would have joined this team?
I,
And like
yeah.
the role you're looking for, he fits the role perfectly. Like this is exactly what Refresh literally fits the role that Hex was trying to play. And he has literally tier one best in the world experience at that position. I don't. see a downside in terms of the main roster. And I genuinely think, especially when you consider, right, EG's looking to develop how they play the game. refrezh was literally an IGL, literally played against EG in Katowice Plains. Like, he knows what they play like. Um, he has ideas that he can bring to the game. He's Danish and has a, he. I would be shocked if he doesn't have a relationship to Warborg in some way. Like,
Oh, you already know they do, yeah.
yeah, like to me, refrezh is one of the most, from what I can tell, from what I, when I hear people talk about him, he seems to be one of the most respected players in the scene. Like, the
Mhm.
dude is just, I don't know, like, there's no downside to this, honestly, when you look at the main roster, and I think he fits all the roles well. I don't really know what other player could have possibly offered what refrezh has to offer to the team. Yeah, you could have signed an offer, you could have signed an international offer, but I don't think that would have necessarily fixed what you were looking for, right? Because it's not necessary, and also I don't think it's fair to Wiz to replace him after essentially 1 month of the worst thing I've ever seen in tier one professional esports. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I just, and it's another thing too, right? He's experienced and he's young, but he can help these, someone like Nealon, right? Like, cause think about this for a second. Nealon's a super young guy. He's an IGL, but he's extremely young. And refrezh, I don't know that he's that much older than Nealon, but he certainly has much more experience than Nealon does when it comes to tier one and how the game is played and he in-game leaded as well. So I'm sure he can help Nealon from an in-game leading standpoint and help him develop as a player, right? And develop his in-game leading style. And then on top of that, he can really help a guy like Wiz feel a little bit more comfortable because he understands how you have to treat players and how you have to, you know, um, you know, almost be like an older brother and kind of help them gain their motivation back because he was an in-game leader. He understands that that's part of the game and how you have to do that to create confidence for your teammates. So and he's a veteran presence. Surprisingly, considering how young he is, he's actually a veteran presence for the team. That's very young and could improve. So I actually think like I don't think there's another player in the world that can literally offer what he can offer. So from that perspective, it's an amazing pickup. Again, the only
Mhm.
downside I have to it is just if you're on EG Black, you do have to consider that that could have been me. Why was it not me? Do I need to play better? Is it because I'm not playing well enough? Is it because refrezh fits a different role? If my role becomes available, am I playing well enough to where I will get picked up? And so I think that is what if you're on EG Black, you have to consider that. But other than that, I think this is literally a perfect fucking move. Like I literally don't see a downside with it.
Yeah, yeah, I think refresh in terms of role, experience, and relation is probably the best move we had. If we're talking about just stats on paper, I would like to mention that Bemis is still available, but I don't know as he from a role and veteran standpoint, he does not fit the bill as much as refresh does. Obviously, he is that like entry type rifler, right? Super young, but I don't know how much he really would bring to the team aspect from a different point of view, right? I think he's always been that guy that just he's a deady rifler that will listen to his IGL and just do whatever he says. I don't think he's going to be. I think the one thing, like you said with refresh, is he might be contradictive, like give constructive criticism of the fact of, hey, I know you want to do it this way, but maybe in practice today we might try this out. Like this might be a good way of doing things, right? Um, so I think I would agree that refresh is probably the best pickup we have. Obviously, probably not in terms statistically, but in terms of like you said, fitting the role, what this team probably and definitely needs, and another veteran presence that can speak their mind and has experience even calling right to help Nealon, to help guys like Wiz. I think it's a really good pickup. Um, as EG as an EG Black, if I was an EG Black player, it does seem like kind of demoralizing that they are outsourcing like someone within my position, right? Um, I think luckily for Black, right? I think Rush and Stan both knew as soon as they went down to Black, they kind of knew their role and that they weren't really shooting for like a main roster promotion. But as that guy like as like George, right, or even Hex now, you kind of do wonder like, they've outsourced once, will they just do it again? Um, I I don't think that will happen in the fact of I think EG's been very clear on wanting to stay as an NA core, to stay in that NA, all the NA qualifiers and stuff like that. So if anything were to happen, they're going to replace another NA player with an NA player. But again, I think refresh is probably the best pickup we have. I think a lot of people were, like I said earlier, and like just joking on this pickup, potential pickup. We're talking as if this has
Yeah,
happened because, to be fair,
it is like the most
what
confirmed, unconfirmed signing I've ever seen
right,
in my life. Like,
right. But let's be honest. With it happened with Valde. It happened with
yep,
NAF, where we all thought it was going to happen, and then they fell through. But this one seems to be a lot more real because with those ones you didn't have automatic making crafts on his AK or Vorberg making tweets about it. I think I think it's down to finances and the business side of it of just actually getting the player transferred over. Um, but no, I really like the refresh pickup.
yeah. And, and
Um,
and I did see something where my good friend Clier had mentioned he was kind of surprised that actually Valde wasn't on the table considering he was also available. And part of me thinks, well, one, who knows if those discussions earlier maybe tainted Valde's opinion of EG and obviously some of the stuff that's happened
right.
the past couple of months. But I think also another thing is too just like Refresh is younger, and I think EG
He's
is just
2
more catered to someone who's going to be younger and has the potential to grow.
yeah,
Whereas Valde, he's a little bit
he's
older.
older.
Well, not a
He's
little bit,
seasoned.
very much older.
Well,
And
actually, so Refresh is only 2 years younger than
how old is
Valde.
Refresh? 25,
Refresh is actually
24,
25. Valde's
25?
27.
So he's actually older than I thought.
Yeah,
But
he is a little bit older than, but I think again at the time of I get saying Valde is benched on ins, but who's to say they didn't talk to
oh,
Valde,
they
but they were
probably
like,
yeah,
hey,
they might
but
have.
but who right? But who's to say like, oh, but hey, Refresh is available this time.
Yeah.
Let's talk to him. That might fit better,
Yeah, and
right? So
I think
because
another part of it too is obviously Refresh just has experience playing on Heroic when the Heroic was the number one team in the world, and he's
it's a
been to
big thing,
major
dude.
semifinals before, and it's just stuff that Valde hasn't done yet. Uh, you know. So, but yeah,
Dude, I'm looking at all the available free agents and bench players. There's like a decent international
decent
team to
teams,
be
yeah,
made. I
yep,
mean, like, dude, Bemis is available. Searson got benched. I think that was his decision. Valde,
Seriously, yeah,
Nexa, Score, Hampus, Norbert, Cirque, S-Tag. There's an international roster in there to be made. I'm telling you. But anyways, back to EG. Um, no, refresh, good pickup. That's all.
yeah,
That's all there is to say. I mean,
yeah.
you could call up a EG Black player, but who's to say it won't work out like Hex did, right? Where it there's so much weight on their shoulders and they feel so much pressure to where
I think
they
they
have to
felt,
help carry the team.
yeah, I think they
Now you have
felt like
refresh.
they needed a some type of veteran experience that came from EU and not
Right.
because if you think about it, yeah, they have veteran experience in Automatic and Breeze, but it's not really veteran experience when you consider Automatic played Valorant for a while. Breeze lost all confidence and is never been the most
I
cerebral
mean, he was
player in
in
the
that
world.
NA bubble of COVID, right? So
Yeah,
like
and
they lost a ton of international experience.
yeah, and that's a big part of it. Also lost some motivation, and has clearly been a player that's mostly mechanically, driven and skilled. And is also a very quiet guy. Um, so look, you're not getting that experience really from the player side because yeah, you have Nealon who is international, but he's not really a veteran on the
He
team or
played
anything. He's a very
K23, which was already tier 2
it's tier
EU,
two.
right?
Um,
So,
and so
yeah.
then it's like you look to the coach and you have Vorborg, who's honestly new to Counter Strike. So that's
Yeah,
not even a veteran,
as
you
much as we
know.
love Warburg, he's from Lowell, ain't he? Or
He was originally with League of Legends. He went to Counter
yeah.
Strike and was
Well,
I
he
believe
was
a
a
part-time owner of Copenhagen Flames,
you're right.
and then was ended up being the
Then
coach for
turned into
Copenhagen
coach.
Flames.
Right, which I think
Um,
he's I think Vorberg's great, right?
No, he's
I love
fantastic,
that
but
guy.
I'm just saying he's not
But
like
and
a
he's not a
EU
Robin.
seasoned coach.
He's
He's
not a
not.
Blade. He's
If
not
you're looking
a
for
Bruce.
veteran
Right.
EU perspective, you're not getting it from Warborg.
Yeah.
Now what you are gonna get it. Now you could get it from Malik, but that's really it. Um, there's
Yeah.
nobody else, and so I think part of it too is just like, yeah, look, refrezh is experienced EU player who's very calm, very solid. I think personally that his in-game leading is going to hurt your individual performance. It just will. So I think his stats look worse than they actually are. I don't think he's actually what his rating is.
I agree.
But I think like it just makes a lot of sense for refrezh in terms of why EG would want him on the team. I still don't entirely know why refrezh is joining this fucking team in this organization
Dude, if
after
I'm
everything that's come
refreshed,
out.
it's
But
like, damn, did I
maybe he
really
just
not get
figures.
any other offers?
Yeah, potentially he didn't, right? Potentially he hasn't gotten any other offers and wanted to try something different. Who the fuck knows what's going on in his personal situation, right? Who
But
knows? But
if if you are refreshed and you're thinking like, these guys need help and I can be that difference in that team.
yeah, you know you're gonna matter. You know you're
Yeah,
gonna matter, and you're
you
gonna
know
have an impact.
instantaneously you're gonna change things. Your voice is gonna be heard because
Yeah,
if you go join fucking top 10 team and slot in some, they're gonna be like, nope, you're gonna do this. This is what we want you for. I don't give a
add it
fuck
to the
what you
list of
think.
players that should be on that should replace Zipnix that have not replaced
Just don't.
Zipnix.
That. So
Like, but but yeah, I think with that being said, I think we can move on to our final topic, which literally just got released today, which is that Stewie 2K is now gone from EG. He is now a free agent. Fucking finally. Mind you guys, remember when this motherfucker was no longer playing games? He has been getting paid a fat fucking salary since that point. This man has been getting paid a shit ton of money by EG this whole fucking time. Just keep that in mind.
yeah, yeah,
Stewie is now announcing that he is returning to competitive play, not necessarily in Counter Strike. He said he is open to Counter Strike and Valorant. Um, spoiler, he tried doing it in Valorant. It hasn't fucking worked out too well. Because
yeah.
guess
He didn't
what? Now
fucking
that the league is now
qualify.
a partnered league, now that it's a partnered league, it's all suddenly a lot fucking harder to become a professional Valorant player. Who would have thought? Another reason why I think that, you know what? Maybe there will be some tier 2 NA Valorant players who will come back to CS2 because surprisingly, it might actually be fucking easier to make it in fucking CS than it is to make it in Valorant because of how
True.
hard it is to make it through the fucking tier 2 Valorant scene right now compared to joining a tier 2 team in NA. And who knows, you still technically have a shot to go through ECL and go to a pro league, make it to a major. You can literally, it is an open qualifier in every fucking major. Might genuinely be easier right now to get to a CSGO major than to be in a partnered franchise league or partnered league with the professional Valorant scene. So, anyways, Stewie claims he's okay with Valorant. I don't buy it. I would imagine if he joins anything, I think it might be CS. I think it might be CS. Honestly, there's been some suspect things that I have seen in terms of I saw Automatic make a tweet asking him to run it back. I fucking hope not. That I do not want to see that. The only fucking way this is the only way that I'll probably never forgive Stewie 2K for what happened because I fucking loved him and I believed in him being an IGL. I believed that he could do it. I wasn't sure that he would be able to do it, but I believed that he would put in the effort and he would try and he could do it. And he didn't even put in the effort. He just gave the fuck up. He failed as a teammate, as a person. He failed everything, and he put this roster in such a shit place, and just did so many fucking horrible things. And then after he was not on the roster anymore, because by the way, when he was supposed to be preparing for the team and he was supposed to be fucking playing and giving it his heart out, what was he doing? He was playing fucking Valorant, and then he left to go be a streamer, and he streamed Valorant, and he talked shit about the org that was paying him money, so and gave him the opportunity and everything he wanted. So that pissed me the fuck off. And so I don't know that I could ever forgive Stewie 2K for doing all of those things. But the only way that I see Stewie 2K making a comeback in Counter Strike, basically, he has to come back. He has to fucking apologize for what he's done, first off. which may or may not happen, because he doesn't look like he's willing to do that. But again, this is a dream world, best case scenario type thing. He apologized for everything he did, says and owns up to it, fucking goes to a tier 2 North American team, shows that he can be a good fucking teammate, doesn't in-game lead, becomes that old role that he had where he was an energy guy and could be a good entry
Hmm.
fragger and just really just bring a lot of energy to the team and be like, I mean, just yeah, just what Stewie 2K was known for back in the day,
Right.
right? He becomes that player again, helps develop a tier 2 North American team, maybe shows some good results, maybe goes to a pro league and shows some good stuff, maybe even qualifies just to a fucking RMR or something.
Who's
Who
to
knows?
know? I
Plays
mean,
well, right? There's enough promise there. Everyone knows who Stewie 2K is. If he does those things, I do believe he'd get signed to a tier 1 North American team, or maybe he might even get enough value where he'd go to a tier 1 fucking EU team, depending on how good the team is. Maybe he could even go to, if he's super serious about it, maybe he pulls a twist and maybe his reputation isn't as good as Twist, so he has to go to a tier 2 European team first and then work his way up to tier 1 Europe or something like that. There are pathways for him to make it back. He still can turn this ship around. However, I just don't know that I believe in him to do it because of the person that he has become. So that I just want to say that because I don't like Stewie 2K. I don't. I don't like him for what he did. He broke my fucking heart and ripped it to shreds. He stamped on it. He didn't fucking stop even after he was off the team. I think the shit he said where he said he never fell out of love with the game is bullshit. He clearly did because he was playing fucking Valorant while he was supposed to be the in-game leader for Evil Geniuses and he just wasn't doing it. He stopped in-game leading for the team while Nicole was in the fucking room with him. He didn't give a shit. So I don't fucking care about that. That's a fucking lie. Automatic. I don't understand why you'd want to run it back with him right now. You should fucking wait until he's proved that he's an actual matured human being and can fucking stand on his own 2 feet and actually do what he needs to do to get back into the scene. As far as I'm concerned, he's at ground zero. He's at level one. Welcome to the fucking tier 2 North America. Welcome to the beginners. You're back at the fucking start. You got to earn your reputation all over again. And if anything, you have to do even more so because now you have a negative reputation in the scene. Most of the people who have heard this news of him coming back are pretty much all saying he's a scumbag. I can't believe he's back. He will never get accepted. He will never become a professional player again in the scene. He has a lot to prove if he actually wants to do this. And I truly fucking hope that he finds his way back. I just don't think it's possible. Or it's not that I don't think it's possible. I just don't know that he can see himself. I don't know that he is matured enough to be able to do that yet. I'm literally looking at HLTV right now. I see Stewie 2K announces that he's going to return, and right above it is a thread that says "fuck Stewie 2K." Like people do not have a good reputation of this guy. I don't have a good. I don't like him. I don't. And if he does all those things that I said, and he does make it back, and he does become a professional player again, and really proves it, and pulls a twists, and just fucking like says, "No, I'm dedicated to fucking winning, and I'll do whatever it takes to win. I'll go to an EU team. I don't give a shit." And he proves it. By all means, respect is earned. I don't know that I'd forgive him for what he did, but I could at least respect him for who he is now. I just don't see it happening. Um,
yeah.
and he's got to prove me wrong. Um, I'm
He,
glad he's not with EG anymore. I'm glad because I was tired of having him tied to the EG brand, considering all the shit that he gave them, and he just was there. Um, it pissed me off, frankly.
yeah.
Um, I don't like the guy. I don't like the everything that he did. Just I lost all respect for him. But he can earn it back slowly and surely, some of it at least, if he does the right things. I don't think he will. I think just from seeing the messages that he sent, the stuff like "I never lost love for the game" or "I made mistakes," but he doesn't really fully own up to it. Just some of the things that that have been said in that, not only in his statements that he released today, but on top of that, just the things you've heard him say in the past, even when he was just playing Valorant and streaming. I just don't buy that that's who he has
Nah, dude.
become
It's
at this
it's
point.
legit just all like
It's just
um
fake to me.
I forgot what it's the PR word for it, but like damage control. That's all I
Damage
call
control, yeah.
it. Like I don't even want to really waste my breath on him to be 100% honest. He's out of EG. That's all I really care about. He can go do whatever the fuck he wants to do. If he wants to come back, that's great. Cool. As long as he's not touching my fucking org that I support, that's great. But I can't imagine any fan of any team. that sees, oh, we picked up Stewie. That's fucking awesome. I can't imagine that.
Not right
Not
now,
right
no.
now. Homies, listen, like I hate saying like 25 is old because we're picking up refresh, but um, you're starting with such a bad rep now at the age of 25 and wanting to come back. I think this is funny. It's one of the threads on HLTV. It says, "Imagine getting bullied out of 2 games. Maybe you start to think that I'm the issue." Like, like I don't, I don't know, dude. He's something else. He made me one, like he was the first pro I knew. He was the first guy that I was a fan of. It was really cool seeing um seeing a Asian American like myself succeed in a game that I'm starting to really get into. It was really awesome for me. And then he just comes into my team, and I'm like, oh, this is fucking sweet. Now I get to actually like not just root for him on the side individually. I get to root for him as a guy on my team. He kind of shits the bed and the roster and fucks it all up and blows up this big fucking story. And I just lost a lot of respect for the guy. Honestly, I'm not saying it's not possible for him to come back and be successful because I mean, at the end of the day, he was a really good player, right? That's the past. And we see how it is for Breeze and Automatic, right? Like Automatic stayed with the team, and he, as good as he has been, and like still kind of is, he's no C9 Gen G Automatic quite yet.
Nope.
Like that, I don't think he is. Audie's fully back, and I doubt Stewie would be able to just slot into any roster and be like, "Oh, yeah, we're now going to contend for majors." Nah,
Yeah, yeah, and I like look like I said, it's because I used to get excited. I got so fucking excited just seeing Stewie 2K in an EG jersey, and
that,
when he showed up to events, I was just it just made me so giddy because I was like, I can't fucking believe we have Stewie 2K on the roster. Um, and he just but yeah, like I said, what breaks me the most is just because I mean, he fucking just shattered it. He just ruined it so badly. And I think like when people look at like it's so crazy that it happened to be today that he announced this because of just the timing with twists. And I mentioned that because it's
oh, dude,
just
I thought about
crazy.
that too, bro. Twist wins the fucking Grand Slam, first NA player to do so. Wait, he's the first player ever to win it
He's the
twice,
first
right?
player ever, and he'll probably be the well, he is
One of the
going to be.
onlys.
He's going to be the only player to have ever done it in Counter Strike Global Offensive. No other
Right,
player will do it.
right. And like now people are like, oh, now he's the like NA's best player fucking ever. And it used to like, if we're being honest, it probably used to be Stewie being one of the best as
I
far
don't know
as
that it was ever
as
Stewie, but
as
in
far as
terms
like
of most accomplished, yes,
yeah, yeah. So like most accomplished, most winnings, right? Stewie probably was regarded as one
he
of
was
the
number one.
most, if not the most accomplished player
Yeah,
in NA. And then Twist finally wins his second Grand Slam. And he's like, oh, hey, by the way, I still exist and I'd like to come back.
yeah.
Like,
I mean,
nah,
I
bro.
will
Like,
say it's so sad when I look at. I mean, I'm on Dust2's website and I just look at latest activity, and it's like NA's hero twists, and then Stewie 2K announces return, and I'm like,
yeah,
what? I just can't help but like think like, dude, Stewie, that could have been you, dude. That could have been you.
it could have been
You
him.
could have been the twists of NA,
Oh, he
and
wasn't,
like
though.
you
Fuck that
literally,
guy.
it could have been you. Like you literally could have made the decision and been like, you know what? I need to fucking stop with this. I can be an IGL shit. I'm chewing up too much. I need to go back to what I'm good at. And he could have joined a fucking EU team just like Twists. He could have done that. He could have joined a team like FaZe. He could have fucking. I know teams wanted him. Good teams wanted him. He would have been able to make it on a tier 1 EU team. He was that good. And or at least he had the reputation that was good enough. If he had recognized what his mistakes were and corrected them and played, he said, look, I don't want to be an IGL. I want to go back to what I was good at, and I want to be a team player, and I want to be a piece that brings energy to the roster and all those things that he used to do, right? When he was on that Grand Slam winning, Liquid roster. He could have done that, gone to an EU team and been super successful, won another major potentially, could have won a Grand Slam, like could have done these things. And so it's just wow, is it fucking insane to see Twist go and be the most accomplished player in North American history so far, um, win a Grand Slam, win a major, and to see Stewie 2K essentially back at, hey, I got to play on a tier 2 North American team. Like, that is fucking insane because they literally could have been, he could, Stewie has to be looking at what Twist is doing and been like, that could have been me. If I had a
Yeah,
better attitude, that could have been me. And it's not because of his own decision making. So it's like, that's
he's got
insane
to
to me.
be
In terms
jealous.
of his legacy, that is insane. And I just thought, wow, what a like in terms of like how storylines work, like that is fucking insane to me that like just seeing both of those and just seeing that phrasing of NA's hero. It's like, Stewie, that was you. Like when Cloud9 won the major, that was fucking you. And it could have been you. It was you when you won the Grand Slam. You were NA's hero. You literally were NA's hero, and then you just
And then you
decided to be
shit
an
the bed.
absolute fucking douchebag and you ruined it for yourself. You ruined it for yourself. It wasn't anybody else. You ruined it for yourself. And so it's like, damn, man, like that could have been you, bro. It was you. You were that person. And you threw it away. And was it worth it? Was it worth it? No. Um, so
I got
I just
nothing
thought
more
that
to
that
say
was,
about that.
yeah, no, I don't have anything else to say about it. I just thought that was like a very poetic sort of thing to
It's
see. I was
ironic,
like,
dude.
wow,
It's
like I
ironic as
can't
shit.
fucking believe that. That's so insane. Um, but yeah, so I think that's everything. I think we've literally gone through everything. It's been a long fucking episode,
It's been a long
um,
fucking week, dude.
but it's been a long week, yeah. And with CS2 coming out, and then also all the news on EG coming out, I felt like I wanted to talk about CS2 just because like it's just too big of a piece of
It's
news to
too
not
big
talk
not to.
about. Like
Yeah.
it just influences everything. So, um, but yeah, hopefully you all enjoyed. I will certainly enjoy timestamping everything. Although actually, I don't really think it's gonna be that hard.
I think
Um,
we were on it. I think we're.
it's
I think
pretty
we were
easy
pretty
to keep
scheduled
track of
this time.
stuff. But yeah, looking forward to hearing what you guys think about CS2, about EG, EG Black, the Stewie 2 situation, all that good shit. So leave your thoughts in the comments. Fucking, I don't know, reply to me on fucking Twitter and you know, tell me I'm a fucking moron. I don't care. I'll probably just ignore you, or I'll reply to you and be an ass. Either way, let us hear your thoughts. Thank you guys for watching, and hopefully, I know it sounds bad to say this, but hopefully there won't be as much news this week, so that we don't have a fucking
Uh,
3 hour, like a 2 to 3 hour fucking podcast episode. Um, it's a little bit easier for you guys to keep track of everything, but hopefully you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you guys next time.